The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning. Tragedy at sea. At least 17 dead and 15 missing after a boat with migrants capsizes. 2 Bahamians being held in the smuggling tragedy. Prime Minister Davis says we cannot absorb irregular migrants. And from the Track and Field World Championships, Sean Miller-Weibo, finally an outdoor champion. It's all straight ahead this morning. I'm Dwight Strachan, and this is Morning Blend.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. You know that it's here. It's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning again, Bahamas. It is Monday, July 25th, 2022. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Again, I'm Dwight Strachan. In a moment, Laverne Gardner will be joining us, filling in for Pamela Musgrove today. Also this morning, we are talking with the Public Hospitals Authority, talking about a lot about the work that they are doing and the challenges they're facing. We're going to get into that with them this morning. Then in our 9 o'clock Morning Blend business hour, we are talking with former Environment Minister Romuald Ferreira about some recent incidents and his views on it and the legislation that is needed to tackle these problems. We're going to get into that. But first, it's time for the overnight, the latest breaking news from while we're sleeping, and the top national and international headlines this morning. In the overnight, at least 17 Haitians, including a little girl, dead now, and as many as 15 people are believed to be missing after a 30-foot speedboat they were traveling on to apparently Miami capsized 7 miles off New Providence shortly after 1 a.m. Sunday. Authorities are saying the victims, 15 women and 1 man, and a girl who was believed to be between the ages of 4 and 5. Were among the 50 to 60 people on the vessel when it overturned as a result of rough seas after leaving an area west of the fish fry in Nassau. Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernandez says 2 Bahamian men, ages 39 and 48, rescued along with the Haitian survivors, taken into police custody. Fernandez says responding Defense Force officers found 25 individuals clinging to the vessel. He said the hull of the boat is the same color as the sea, and it was difficult at nighttime to identify the vessel in the water. He said it was submerged in the water and that officers heard a knocking to the hull of the boat. Divers eventually went down, and that's where they recovered some bodies, 17 bodies. He said that there was 1 woman still alive under there. Fernandez says 8 to 15 people are believed to be missing still. Public Hospital Authority Managing Director Abinet Roll said 3 survivors, 2 women and 1 man, were hospitalized with near drowning symptoms and dehydration. Roll says the man was doing well and was expected to be released Yesterday, 20 survivors were turned over to immigration officials, according to Immigration Minister Keith Bell, who says that they are being held at the Carmichael Road Detention Center. Bell says that some of the survivors indicated that they spent $3,000 to $8,000 for the voyage. Fernandez says the two Bahamians in custody are, quote, known to us. Meanwhile, at a press conference later in the day, Prime Minister Philip David said that the Bahamas did not sign on to an irregular migration declaration while he attended the Summit of Americas recently because the country does not have the resources to absorb refugees. David said that 17 people died on that boat, but he said that repatriation could be difficult, and that that's one of the reasons why the Bahamas didn't sign on to this, and why they've beefed up surveillance to prevent others from coming in. He said, quote, "The world is suggesting that we should absorb all of those who leave Haiti. That's what they will say to me. When I was at the Summit of the Americas, they wanted me to sign on to an irregular migration declaration, but we have our own peculiar circumstance that I keep reminding the world of. We are unable to open our borders to irregular migration and or refugees either because of our own limited resources and because they ask us to do things, but at the end of the day, who foots the bill? You, the taxpayers." Now, Davis didn't provide additional information on that declaration, but the White House released a Los Angeles Declaration on Migration Protection on June 10th. The country did not sign on to the declaration, but other countries in the Caribbean, including Barbados, Haiti, and Jamaica, did. Signatories acknowledged that addressing irregular international migration requires a regional approach and that ongoing health, social, and economic challenges of the pandemic exacerbate the root causes driving irregular migration, including the vulnerabilities of many migrants and their communities. A man on bail for criminal matter murdered as he tried to get gas at a service station on Carmichael Road yesterday. Chief Superintendent Michael Johnson, the officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Department, said the victim drove to the gas station at the intersection of Carmichael and Faith Avenue around noon. We're told that he went into the service station where he purchased an item and exited and pulled up on the line for the pump, and that as he was waiting for his vehicle to be filled with gas, a small vehicle pulled up and a man got out and shot the victim multiple times. The killer, we're told, fled the area heading west on Carmichael Road. Police do not say what the victim, who was in his early 30s, was on bail for. He died at the scene. Police say the killer was driving a white Toyota Passo. The latest murder coming after two men were murdered in separate incidents on Thursday. A man on Peter Street was murdered in his home, and another was stabbed to death after he got into a fight with another man. Overseas from the United Kingdom, the two candidates vying to be Britain's next prime minister will face off in a TV debate today after both sought to woo the Conservative Party's right-wing base by backing a controversial plan to deport some asylum seekers to Rwanda. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and former Treasury Secretary Rishi Sunak are battling to succeed the discredited Boris Johnson as head of Britain's governing party. They were chosen by Conservative lawmakers from an initial field of 11 candidates as finalists to replace Johnson, who quit as party leader on July 7th after months of ethics scandals triggered a mass exodus of ministers from his government. The winner will automatically become prime minister, governing a country of 67 million, but will be chosen by about 180,000 Conservative Party members. They will vote over the summer, with the result announced September 5th. Johnson remains caretaker prime minister until his successor is chosen. Taiwan's capital staging air drills today, and its military mobilizing for routine defense exercises, coinciding with concerns over a forceful Chinese response to a possible visit to the island by U.S. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. While there was no direct link between China's renewed threats and Taiwan's defensive moves, they underscored the possibility of a renewed crisis in the Taiwan Strait, considered a potential hotspot for conflict that could envelop the entire region. Air raid sirens were sounded in the capital of Taipei, and the military was holding its annual multi-day Hanquang drills, including joint air and sea exercises and the mobilization of tanks and troops. In Taipei, police directed people to shelters when a siren went off shortly after lunchtime. Streets emptied and shops closed. According to Taipei's mayor, in recent years, Chinese military planes have frequently harassed Taiwan, and the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out in February this year. And more international news. Thousands of indigenous people are expected to converge today on a small Alberta prairie community in Canada to hear a long-awaited apology from Pope Francis for generations of abuse and cultural suppression at Catholic residential schools across the country. Francis is scheduled to arrive in mid-morning at the site of the former Indian residential school, now largely torn down. He'll pause at the sites of the former school and nearby cemetery before speaking in a large open area to school survivors, their relatives, and other supporters. Francis arrived Sunday in Edmonton, where he was greeted by representatives of Canada's three main Indigenous groups, along with political and church dignitaries. The Pope spent most of the day, or the rest of the day, resting at a seminary in the provincial capital. The Canadian government has admitted that physical and sexual abuse were rampant in the state-funded Christian schools that operated from the 19th century to the 1970s. Some 150,000 Indigenous children were taken from their families and forced to attend in an effort to isolate them from the influence of their homes, native languages, and cultures, and assimilate them into Canada's Christian society. Francis's 6-day trip will also include other sites in Alberta, Quebec City, and Nunavut in the far north, following meetings he held in the spring at the Vatican with delegations from the First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit. In sports, finally, Shana Milowibo, a world outdoor champion. She's truly in the class by herself now, making history on Friday, becoming just the second woman and second athlete ever to win all of the global titles in an individual event in athletics, joining a former Russian pole vaulter in accomplishing the feat. They've both captured World Youth, World Junior, World Indoor, World Outdoor, and Olympic titles in the same event. 28-year-old Milowibo is now also just the second athlete worldwide to win the World Youth, World Junior, and World Outdoor titles. Leading off with the World Junior title, she joins Jamaican legendary athlete Usain Bolt in accomplishing that feat. You can read more about Shana Milowibo's accomplishments in today's Guardian Sports section. From the final night of the World Athletics Championships in Eugene, Oregon, two Bahamians in competition, Devin Charlton and Ken Mullings, looking to build on the fantastic gold medal run of Shana Milowibo. For Charlton, she laid it all out on the line, advancing to her second consecutive global final in the women's 100-meter hurdles and scoring a new national record time. For Ken Mullings, it was already a success story for him going into the weekend as he became the first Bahamian to compete in the multi-events at the global meet, the World Championships, or the Olympics. He topped that by setting a new national record himself, scoring 7,866 points, beating Kendrick Thompson's former national record of 7,788 points by 78 points. Get all the details in today's Guardian Sports section. And from Major League Baseball, looks like Bahamian professional baseball player with the Miami Marlins, Jazz Chisholm Jr., will be out for an extended period. Chisholm's injury is more serious than initially thought, as the Marlins' second baseman is set to miss an additional 6 weeks with a stress fracture in his back. Check out today's Guardian Sports section for more. That's sports, and that's the overnight. Time for your first look at weather. In your first look at weather for today, we've got a surface trough that will create some unsettled weather, while a high-pressure ridge generates moderate to strong winds over the country. Residents should be alert for waterspout and or funnel cloud activity. Beachgoers should be alert for rip currents along East Coast beaches, and everybody's being advised to remain hydrated due to high heat indices. For all areas today, look for partly cloudy to cloudy, hot, and breezy to windy conditions with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Thunderstorms may be strong to severe at times. Small craft should exercise caution in the northwest and central Bahamas, and an advisory is in effect for the southeastern islands. Gusty winds and higher seas will happen in or near showers and thunderstorms. Winds easterly at 15 to 20 knots in the northwest and central Bahamas, but easterly at 20 to 25 knots in the southeastern islands. Seas 4 to 7 feet in the northwest and central islands, but 7 to 10 feet in the southeastern Bahamas. Temperatures today getting up to around 92 Fahrenheit, 33 Celsius, but the heat index will make it feel like 108 Fahrenheit, 42 Celsius. Overnight lows tonight getting down to about 79 Fahrenheit, 26 Celsius. That's your first look at weather this morning. We'll have your extended outlook and look at the tropics coming up after traffic in just a bit.
Wake up, it's a new day.
You're listening to Morning Blend. When we come back, we're discussing the day's top stories right here on your home for fresh news and smart talk all day. Guardian Radio 96.9.
It's the start of a new way. You know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue and Palm Beach Street, has those hard-to-find fasteners for you right now. You can find stainless steel regular hex, carriage bolts, galvanized bolts, threaded rods, nails, self-tap screws, sex bolts, anchor bolts, turnbuckles, masonry tools, hand tools, and weed whacker strings. Check out the rope selection and carved body fasteners, too. Special orders are welcome. It's your #1 fastener store. Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue and Palm Beach Streets. Call 326-1976.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Hello? Keisha, you something else, boy.
Who this is? Tamika?
You don't even remember my name? Wow, Dread.
Girl, I've been so busy. You still planning your trip?
Girl, and I can't wait. I right here online booking my car.
You dare planning trip. You vaccinated?
Girl, we had to. We ain't been nowhere since this pandemic started. Girl, and we got a 14-day vacation.
Best vacation ever.
Girl, are you though?
Well, I know you was gonna get the vaccine because you too like travel. When y'all get your vaccine?
Girl, long time. Because you gotta get your first dose, wait, then get your second dose at least 2 weeks before you travel. Johnny get his vaccine and he 12. Even Grammy get hers. Child, and Grammy say she ain't get no money. But I see her hiding that under the mattress.
Child, let me send my list because I know you going shopping.
Keisha, don't play with me.
Vaccinate today, live tomorrow. A message by PAHO WHO, Canada, and USAID.
When faced with an illness like cancer, we band together, and we at Cleveland Clinic in Florida have your back. From advanced cancer treatments to extra safety measures at all of our locations, we're with you on this journey. For every infusion and follow-up, for every step of the way, for every care in the world. Cleveland Clinic in Florida. Get the care you need when and where you need it. To learn more or connect with a local representative, Visit clevelandclinic.org/Caribbean.
Technology serves to make our lives better, so why not your business too? At Custom Computers, we've been maintaining our knowledge and relationships with top tech companies since 1987 and carry only the most trusted brands like Apple, Microsoft, HP, and more. No company has helped more businesses build reliable IT systems than Custom Computers. You name it, we've done it. Call 396-1101 to talk to any of our business experts. Find trust in your tech. Count on Custom Computers.
It's regatta time again with Sand Dollar and the Rollville Development Association in Exuma for the 78th Rollville Regatta and Homecoming. All roads lead to Exuma, July the 28th through August 1st for Sand Dollar giveaways all weekend. Get ready for live performances, gospel night, battle of the DJs, boat sailing, mixology competition, and so much more. Come and hang out with the Sand Dollar team to learn about the Bahamian digital dollar. Use Sand Dollar at the regatta site to avoid having to worry about cash. Check out www.sanddollar.bs for more information about the digital dollar.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. You know that.
Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9. We are streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 and BTC Flow Channel 612. You can tweet us at MorningBlend969 or Facebook.com/MorningBlend969. Text us on the Guardian Radio text line, ETC 422-4796. Once again, I am Dwight Strachan. Joining me now, Laverne Gardner. Laverne, good morning. Thank you so much for being here on a Monday. Is Laverne there?
Yes, can you hear me?
There we go. Good morning, yes. Laverne. Thank you so much for being here, filling in for Pam today.
No problem. Happy Monday.
Yes, happy Monday to you as well. Is this the last Monday in the month? Is that right already?
Yes, because next week, Sunday, is the 31st.
Oh, boy. Wow. It's finished. So Christmas music, you know what that means. Once you finish July. Yeah.
Okay.
It's over. The year's done. Okay. Anyway, great to have you again. This morning, coming up, we're going to be talking with the Public Hospitals Authority. We're going to be talking with them. Quite a few things to talk to them about. That's coming up in our 9 o'clock hour Morning Blend business. We're going to be talking with the former Environment Minister, Romuald Ferrero, is going to be here, getting his views on that tragedy with the diesel oil leak in Exuma, and more. It's coming up. So a lot to get to on this Monday, final Monday in July. Let's begin, though, with what's in the news. And the news, just want to begin with this because I know with what else is happening, we will not get back to this at all, I'm sure. But Shawnee Miller-Weibo, of course, Friday night, finally getting the thing that has eluded her so far, the gold at the World Championships. And she's a world champion now, world outdoor champion, after winning every single other award imaginable in the 400 meters. And we're very, 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 very happy for Shawnee. And just Team Bombs in general. Devin Charlton in the hurdles yesterday. And that was quite amazing. I don't know if you got to see that, Laverne. That was...
of course I did.
Yeah, that was quite a race there.
Yes, it was. I was disturbed because, they did their heat and then the finals.
In the same day, right? Within, a couple hours?
Yes. And typically... they have at least a day to rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was interesting. I'm not sure what that was about.
I loved it.
Yeah. And, of course, the winner of that race breaking the world record in the semifinal. So I was just like, can't you just give her the gold now?
At that point. They thought she'd broken the record in the actual finals, but it was win-aided, so it didn't count.
Yeah. And Ken Mullings in the decathlon doing pretty well as well.
Wait, can I tell you? When I saw the first event that I watched, I was like, is that before the name? I was like, hold on, is that a Bahamian jersey? I got so excited.
Oh man, yeah. So, and he broke the national record, his personal best as well. So, and Devin Charlton did as well in
Yeah.
this race.
So kudos to
Did very
all of
well.
our team, everybody.
That's amazing. Yeah. So good stuff there, and they get to do it again next year. So that is wonderful. As they missed a year because of the pandemic, so we're gonna have 2 back-to-back world championships.
Yeah.
So
Will
yeah.
Shawnee be in the 400 though?
That's the big question.
There seems to be talk that she is gonna retire from the 400 and maybe go down to the 2.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes.
We will see. It'll be interesting to see her defend this title, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen in the next 12 months? So, all right. So that's the good stuff that happened over the weekend.
Oh Lord.
Early yesterday, we heard of a tragedy at sea, and we now know it was a human smuggling exercise, and at least 17 people are dead. 15 others are missing, and this is here we go.
Tragedy.
Here we go again.
Tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 Bahamians being held in custody in connection with this apparent smuggling ring. So, for the latest on what happened yesterday and what we heard at a press conference a few hours later in the day yesterday, take a listen to this report from our partners with Our News and Megan Shepard.
Hearses filled the Royal Bahamas Defense Force site on East Bay Street after officers pulled the 17 bodies from the sea. Police reporting the victims of an alleged failed smuggling attempt from New Providence. Prime Minister Philip Davis addressing the tragedy at sea during a joint agency press conference.
25 persons were rescued and were turned over to health officials for monitoring.
The 30-foot speedboat reportedly capsized some 7 miles off of New Providence. Prime Minister Davis noting that additional people are still missing and that search and recovery efforts continue.
Preliminary investigations suggest that a twin-engine speedboat left a docking facility off West Bay Street around a.m. with approximately 60 persons on board. It is believed that their final destination was Miami, Florida. It is believed that the vessel capsized in rough seas.
Minister of Immigration Keith Bell revealing 20 of the survivors were taken to the detention center for questioning.
Those persons have indicated that they would have paid somewhere between $3,000 and $8,000 for this fateful voyage thus far.
Attorney General and Acting Health Minister Ryan Pinder says they are waiting for the final reports from law enforcement. He adds that when it comes to the 2 Bahamian nationals rescued at sea, they are in police custody.
To the extent that those investigations reveal criminal culpability, there will be no resistance by the government of the Bahamas in bringing the necessary criminal action and criminal enforcement action against those who are deservingly so.
Deputy Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, Captain Shondell Pinder says surveillance continues throughout the southern Bahamas and the capital.
So we continue to work with them. We continue to monitor those suspected areas, and we continue to ensure that we're also working with the Royal Bahamas Police Force to ensure that all of us are on the same page. And we've had some successes at some key locations.
Now, following that heartbreaking situation, our Bethany McDermott spoke to several community leaders who were offering their heartfelt condolences. Now, Bethany, I understand an organization says that they are on standby to assist.
That's right, Megan. The Haitian League of Pastors saying they stand ready to assist the families of the victims in whatever way they can. Today, we spoke to members from that community. They all expressing sadness over the incident. Now, again, tributes pouring in for the victims of that tragic incident, with the leader from the Haitian community and the opposition giving condolences and pledging support. Here's that story. Ian Paul Charles sending condolences to the families, calling it a sad occasion. He says the league stands ready to assist those families.
I can tell you from what have happened in the past, we always get together times like that, to assist those who may not, those who are not die, and then we will try to clothing them, feed them, and together with the government, and to see how we can deal with that.
Hi, our Megan Shepard and Berthany McDermott there with our news. Okay, so here we go again with something like this. And at that press conference yesterday, the Prime Minister saying some very interesting things, saying we cannot absorb irregular migrants. Our Jasper Ward writing about it in today's Nassau Guardian. Prime Minister Davis saying the country did not sign on to an irregular migration declaration while he attended the Summit of the Americas recently, because the country does not have the resources to absorb refugees. He said, quote, at the moment, repatriation could be difficult, and that's one of the reasons why we have beefed up our surveillance to prevent them from coming in. The world is suggesting that we should absorb all of those who leave Haiti. That's what they will say to me. When I was at the Summit of the Americas, they wanted me to sign on to an irregular migrant declaration, but we have our own peculiar circumstance that I keep reminding the world of. We are unable to open our borders to irregular migration and or refugees, either because of our own limited resources and because they ask us to do things. But at the end of the day, who foots the bill? You, the taxpayers. Now, the Prime Minister did not provide additional information on that declaration, but the White House released a Los Angeles Declaration on Migration Protection on June 10th. The Bahamas did not sign on to it, but other countries in the region did, including Barbados, Haiti, and Jamaica. Signatories acknowledged that addressing irregular international migration requires a regional approach and that ongoing health, social, and economic challenges of the pandemic exacerbate the root causes driving irregular migration, including the vulnerabilities of many migrants and their communities. They reaffirmed their value for the tradition of the region in welcoming refugees and migrants and showing solidarity with neighbors. The declaration said, quote, we recognize the positive contributions of refugees and migrants to the socioeconomic development of their host communities. We recognize the sustained efforts of states in our hemisphere in hosting refugees, providing regular migration pathways, promoting local economic and social integration, facilitating safe, dignified, and voluntary return, and supporting the sustainable reintegration of returnees. The UN Refugee Agency welcomed the declaration. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. I want to get your views on that as well, in addition to this horrible situation yesterday and Bahamians who continue to be a part of these smuggling rings. Let's talk about it. What should be happening here? What should we do with the people involved? Give us a call, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Remember, standard text rates apply. All right, so we can talk about that, and again, what the Prime Minister mentioned there, and us not signing on to that. All right. Laverne, let's go. Good morning, caller. You are on the air.
Good holiday to this Strachan voice along with you and your co-host, Dwight.
Hi, good morning.
I finished justice, law, and order in this country. Now, a couple of things I want to say. The thing is, the guys would assisted with taking them wherever they were going. They should be charged with manslaughter. Other thing is, right, now I into the Prime Minister talking foolishness in my head. Here is the thing. The Prime Minister goes to those conventions in which the leader of countries, including Haiti, be there. Okay? Now, the Prime Minister knows the problem we just have. The United Nations know the problem we have with those people would be traveling and coming into our country illegal. They has the money. When I say they, not us. They supposed to fix it, and they knowing that they know what's happening, they're not supposed to be dictating to the Prime Minister for
That's
us.
not what they were doing.
Because we vote. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's not what they were doing, and he had the option to sign on, and he didn't. So he's not talking foolishness. He's just letting you know what the rest of the world is expecting, unrealistically, it seems, of a country like the Bahamas. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight. How you doing this morning?
Doing well.
Good morning, Laverne. See, Dwight, let me tell you something, Dwight. You know, I read the headline in Tribune a while ago. The Prime Minister said that our country cannot absorb some migrants, right?
The Guardian,
And he said,
yeah.
right. You know, it was in the Tribune.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't.
Right? He
Sure.
said that we cannot.
Guardian Radio. But okay.
Right, see, Dwight. See, I keep telling you, it's the time we start looking for the Bahamian people. And women rights, you know, we see these prime ministers, these people go and sign these treaties and know the Bahamian people will be totally against these things. That's why it's something called a referendum. Once the people speak, that's it. You cannot let outside people force us to do things. Like our people, Bahamians, kept internal hell in this country. School getting ready to open in 2 or 3 weeks. I ain't nobody trying to help them. People ain't got
but are we clear that he
did not sign it? Yeah.
He did not sign.
I understand that part. I understand that part of the way. See, but they better keep doing these things. See, like I keep telling you all over and over. You see, somebody's posted something on the chat group saying something, but we don't need to go talk. See, my point is this. We need to fix the border. We know where the people coming in. You now got places to get recognized. How do people getting through? Where these young people don't get caught? Tell the AS and tell the writers, stop playing with the people. Anybody who aids in the betting, you hire illegal people, heavy fine. Take the business license from them. We need to stop. This country's supposed to be for us. We humans, man, we get sick and tired. And thanks for taking my call, my brother.
All right. So this is an interesting message here. This is saying that, listen to this, you decide. This texter says, the only way to address this is to join the international community, implement refugee legislation in order to begin addressing these issues. Closing our eyes to it leads to more problems as we continue to see. The Bahamas signed the Refugee Convention in 1993, almost 30 years ago. The convention doesn't require states to accept all migrants. It talks about refugees and also opens to necessary help for the Bahamas to manage the migration challenges. And so that text is suggesting that if we continue to do what we're doing, we will continue to have these issues. What say you to that? Let's see what this caller is saying. Caller, good morning. Good morning. You are on the air.
Yes, good morning, Glenn.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call. I think we need to register.
You're very low. We can barely hear you.
Good morning.
Oh, boy. What just happened? Hi. Good morning. You're on the air.
All right. I just want to reiterate what Bremen said, but that part with our Prime Minister being foolish, that is not so. He knows what he's doing. He's a lawyer, and our country has ended in many, and well, this Prime Minister, well, he would know if it's fragile or not. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that the United Nations has got monies for Haiti. They refused to give it to Haiti because of the government's corruption. So what happens here is that they are the Caribbean's boat people, right? Why don't you give the countries that they are flocking to monies to house them? Because they are here. You're concerned about human rights. And, well, you also complain that they're not getting treated right here. So you've got the money that people have donated, the countries have donated to their country, and you're not giving to them, so give it to the countries where they are. I mean, I don't know if that's the way you guys see it, but that's the way I do. Okay? Thanks for letting me share, man.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And we want to continue to hear what you think should happen to the smugglers as well, what should against them and the many who continue to participate in this. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Thank you. Morning.
There you go.
Let's address the smugglers.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening all over. You see, in the Mediterranean Sea, you don't just have 100 people. You got like 300-400 people trying to find their way from their motherland that they really should have to stay in, but all the resources have been taken out of their land by, of course, the smugglers. And now you have some other smugglers who are apologizing to the Canadians for what has happened to a bunch of their children. Why can't we lock up all the smugglers, including the Pope? Thanks for taking my call.
Wow. Okay. Our Catholic producer is not pleased by your comments. But anyway, good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning. How are you doing today?
Good morning.
We're doing okay.
Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, I think Prime Minister Davis is on the right wicket. I commend him for that move that he's making. Only thing, I think he should have taken it a little further in terms of for the nations to identify countries that would assist in taking those refugees. You know, so to me, just to say, I ain't signing, but we need something for them folks. But in terms, I want to send a clarion call to the Haitian community for the chatter that I am hearing where I am. Those boats that are now charging those heavy fees to take them into Florida they never intend to land on Florida. So there could be three options they're intending to do. They either can take them somewhere like the Freeport off in the night, or go somewhere and tell them they get in Florida, jump overboard and go, or take those boats. But before they reach Florida, I know that's a tragedy, but that is the chatter that I am hearing. They never intending to take those boats into Florida. So I want the Haitian community to be very careful, or anybody, as a matter of fact, who's paying monies to be transported supposedly into Florida. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, boy. Well, that is very frightening there. Okay. Where does one hear such chatter? Wow. Okay. 323-6232. 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Boy. Oh, boy. This text here. This texter says, I don't feel sorry when I hear another boat capsizes. When one wants to break the law, either the law needs to address it or circumstances will. Certainly addressed it in this case, my goodness. And they also go on to say, don't only address the smugglers, we need to whip these Haitians in Rawson Square for breaking the law.
Dwight, I'm so sorry you read that.
I think people need to hear.
I'm sorry you read that.
The type of people we are living amongst.
Unbelievable.
So should they also whip the Bahamians who are illegally living in Canada and the United States when they are found? Is that what you're suggesting? Would you like to see that too, texter? Is that how it should work? When you try to escape a place that you think is not the best place for you to be in, and you try to better your life, you should get whipped? Is that what you're suggesting? We know plenty of Bahamians who are illegally living in countries they shouldn't be. So is that what you think? Probably your family. Yeah? Okay. Well. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. All right, let's take another call. Good morning, caller. You are on the air.
And try again.
All right. Oh, wow. Okay. Everybody lost control of the senses just then. No, we got another one. Yeah, let's take that one there, if that is cleared. Yes? No? Okay. 323-6232. 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. This person says here, I agree with that caller. International Court of Justice is where they all need to go to set it right for the black race. Did the caller suggest that? This person says, if some 60 people were on that boat, that trip was planned over a long time. Many people knew it was going on and kept it quiet. Those people were residing here for a long time to accumulate that amount of money. In my mind, many people are culpable. Yeah, we don't doubt that.
I'm sure it's a huge ring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, but if we could just talk about the Bahamian, I guess the drivers, whomever, we could talk about that. They have to face, for me, they have to face more than a fine.
Yeah, I think actually Braver might be right. Manslaughter might
17
be
people died.
Might be a good charge.
17 people died and 15 are missing, and 20 rescued. So altogether, there were maybe about 60 people on a 30-foot speedboat. I don't know the width of the boat because you could kind of work out. If you don't know, you could kind of work out the capacity.
Yeah. It's too many people.
It's too many people.
And they're traveling in the middle of the night on a speedboat. You know,
and the water.
This is crazy.
The state of the water.
Yeah.
And, that is the level of desperation.
And not a life vest inside.
I'm sure. Not one.
This person says here, for the smugglers, Dwight, life in prison. We need to send a strong message to future smugglers.
Yeah. And,
Wow.
and one of the earlier callers said that, based on the chatter that he's hearing, may I say to you, Dwight, that I have heard that long ago, that sometimes there are smugglers with no intentions of taking you to your destination. They just take you long enough maybe to where you feel, okay, so this boat ride has been long enough. Yeah, we should be there.
Because they already got the money.
Someplace else, and they've gotten the money. What are you going to do? Are you going to go file a complaint? So you're out of potentially $3,000 to $8,000, and you're still in the Bahamas or wherever.
Wow. Let's take some more calls, and then we'll take a few more messages, and then we got to take a break. Good morning, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning to you, Dwight and Laverne, Seattle and Johnson.
Hi.
Good morning.
Yes. Hi, Dwight. Before I point, I think you should recall that during the COVID debate that we spoke about health, education, housing, job, economic, food, security crisis, national debt, economic reform, education crisis again. And one of the things that was brought up was the impending immigration crisis. As it stands right now, the Haiti has a departure issue that has wrecked Haitians leaving Haiti in decades, more so accelerated by the assassination of their president, which is right about now is about the anniversary. What you have now in Haiti is widespread hunger, soaring inflation, crippling fuel costs, rising gang violence, etc., that will only exacerbate it. In the Bahamas, illegal migration is a billion-dollar business. And Dwight, we've had this conversation concern when you look at the economic impact, the exploitation of the labor in the Bahamas, just multiplied by the 40,000 individuals, multiplied by the depression of the economy, the savings in labor, etc. It's very easily $1.3 to $1.5 billion a year. And so when and that's just using if you underpay them by $100 or $150 than what they should get. The problem we face is very simple in the age of technology. For well over 2 decades now, we talk about digitizing the economy. So essentially, once you have a national ID system, a verification process for all jobs in the Bahamas, digitally or otherwise, a reporting system that rewards individuals that report illegal labor processes, we could very easily self-correct this in a matter of 6 months. But the problem is that there are individuals well known to us, many in public figure, that directly or indirectly benefits from this. So we should actually accept partial responsibility, not just for these individuals that died, but for the thousands of individuals that may have died over the decades in their quest for a better life.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely. Got a lot of calls and text messages coming in. Let's take this really quickly. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Okay. Let's take the other one. Good morning. You're on the air. Are you there? No. Okay. This person says here, morning, we are blaming smugglers, but the big question is where was the police, Marine Patrol, and Royal Bahamas Defense Force Patrol who were responsible for patrolling the harbor 24 hours? The police and there was patrol units at the time, and why patrol units not patrolling the harbor? Do you think that's a bigger question there? Yeah, I mean,
okay, we can ask that.
Yeah,
question.
Okay, fine, but
we can ask that question, but that doesn't take away from what the smugglers did.
And this is a Nazi Germany. You can get in your boat in the middle of the night and go out. I mean, if they're hiding under the below. Come on, what's sure? Okay, folks. How does a boat of that size, with that number of people, leave from Nassau undetected? Again, they probably were not out in the open. They weren't like all sitting up there waving to people like the
It
party
wasn't like
boats.
this was a party
Right,
boat.
you
They
know?
had music, and they already said they left in dead of night.
You see, look at these
yeah.
pictures. This boat is either dark blue or black, the underside of it, right? It isn't white. They did not want to be seen. This is a real advanced operation, clearly.
Yeah.
So maybe
This is a ring.
this person says here this $3,000 or $8,000. What are they paying? What are they paying for? Do you know what that can do for their families in Haiti?
Clearly, their mindset is this is a minor investment in my quest to improve my life and get to where I believe I can do more. I'll be in a better position to help my family.
Yeah.
So for them, this investment is worth the risk, and it is unfortunate. And there are people out there who know that there are people who are desperate and they are gonna capitalize on
Absolutely. This
it.
text.
Yes, it's wrong. Yes, it's illegal. But they're gonna take the risk anyway.
Yeah. This texter says here, I blame Joe Biden for opening the borders and letting Hispanics in, but deporting Haitians. Okay. And how did all these illegal immigrants get into the country, and why didn't the Haitian community alert police and immigration that these illegals were here? You all are new, very new to the Bahamas. Welcome. Hopefully you're here legally. This person
I'm
says,
sorry. Can we
I don't
go back
understand
a
what.
minute? They said that they blamed Joe Biden.
Yes. Because
Why?
this is
America's
new, Laverne.
always had.
This is
Okay.
obviously very new. None of this stuff has been happening before, apparently. This person saying, why did you read that text? Well, why did that person send it? This person says here.
Yes, Dwight, why did you read it?
Like I said, everyone needs to know what we're dealing with here, what people think is right.
We didn't need to know that.
This person says those smugglers should be jailed for at least 25 years. I don't feel that the smugglers, if they are Bahamians, should face charges. This must be one of their children. I don't know. Haitians risk their own lives daily and don't value it. Oh, my gosh. So we don't need to value their lives if they don't. Okay, folks, what's happening today? What's happening? You cannot be. Who are you? Whoa. Oh.
Really?
Oh, boy.
Is this who we are?
My goodness. This person says, Dwight, I noticed that you are not talking about the people who are harboring such persons. In my opinion, they are equally culpable as it relates to breaking the laws of the Bahamas. As a matter of fact, the lawbreakers start with the harborers.
100%.
Don't disagree with you. I don't know why you have to bring me into it. So you want to talk about it? Good. I'm glad you sent the text. Thank you very much. And I wasn't intentionally not talking about them. Everybody involved in the smuggling operation, including the harborers, right? Yes, they all need to be dealt with. People, as a texter said earlier, people knew about this. This didn't just spring up Sunday morning. Hey, y'all want to go? Yeah, sure.
Right.
No. So everybody involved needs to be held accountable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. The text message is getting worse, and I think I'm going to put this phone down. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to change gears. We're going to be talking about the Public Hospitals Authority, talking with them about the challenges they're facing and many of the programs they have as well. We're looking forward to that discussion. That's coming up in just a bit. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Stay with us.
It's a new day. Wake up. It's a new day. Of the start of the new way. You know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day.
Are you an attorney with a joint practice operating from one location? Accepting payments from clients doesn't have to be complicated.
Introducing RBC MultiPay. Now each attorney can securely accept and settle payments with one point-of-sale device supporting multiple bank accounts.
With competitive pricing, training, and easy setup, you will be up and running in no time.
Call 356-8500 to sign up for RBC MultiPay.
You're always on the go. We know life can be a daily rush. CIBC, First Caribbean, you can count on us. We make life easier. Manage your accounts at any time. Apply for a loan. It's easy when you bank online. We make life easier. CIBC, First Caribbean.
Whether you're battling a chronic condition or offsetting a new injury, Doctors Hospital's comprehensive rehab services offer the help you need now. 3 advanced facilities at Collins Avenue, Carmichael Road, in Cable Beach means your personalized plan for care is just a visit away. From physiotherapy to occupational therapy and speech and language pathology, our team approach is all about rebuilding together. For a full list of services, visit doctorshosp.com/rehabilitation. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now. Isn't your health worth?
96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's time for your first look at traffic for this morning, brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. For all of life's moments, there's one Visa Classic credit card. Getting reports of an overturned vehicle on JFK Drive this morning. This is on the way to the Southwest Ridge roundabout and Munnings Road there. And traffic is flowing, but keep that in mind. It could be delays. An ambulance is said to be on the scene. Elsewhere, we have got a couple of hot spots to tell you about. We've got Independence Drive, seeing some heavy traffic between the 2 roundabouts, between Blue Hill Road and East Street. That's westbound, and you might want to avoid that area if you can. Robinson Road looks, and even Soldier Road looks better if you did get westbound. Again, that's backed up between both roundabouts. Eastbound is also building traffic to the East Street, East-West Highway roundabout, and East Street is busy between the roundabout and Soldier Road. That's northbound mainly. Elsewhere, we've got Eastern Road seeing some heavy traffic as a result of that closure on Village Road between East Bay Street and Harmony Hill Road. And so that's caused backups all day long. You'll see that there. So keep that in mind. They're backed up almost all the way to Fox Hill Road at this time. So you might want to try Prince Charles Drive or Bernard Road as an alternate this morning. Milo Butler Highway not looking too bad. Just as you get north of the Harold Pond, you'll see that heavy traffic in front of you getting to the roundabout at Tawny Williams Darling Highway. And Glasson Road is not looking so bad. Just north of Munnings Road, you'll see that traffic on the way to JFK Drive this morning. Westbound on Carmichael, building traffic there, heading out to Coral Harbor Road. Those are your hotspots right now. That's your real-time traffic and your morning blend traffic alert, brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. RBC reminding you that cashless purchasing power and chip and pin security with your RBC Visa Classic credit card. Manage your day-to-day expenses and apply today at rbc.com/Caribbean/Visa Classic. We'll be back with more Morning Blend after these messages here on Guardian Radio 96.9.
Breakfast just got better at Wendy's. Introducing the Breakfast Biggie Bag. Enjoy a double sausage muffin with 2 square sausage patties, a freshly cracked egg, and cheese served on a toasted English muffin, a medium waffle fries, and an orange juice for only $5.25, VAT inclusive. Add an apple pie for just $1 more.
Say what?
At Wendy's, better breakfast is all day. Offers valid in participating locations. Wendy's, different inside and out.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
Fidelity, we're good for you. You're always on the go. We know life can be a daily rush. CIBC, First Caribbean, you can count on us. We make life easier. Manage your accounts at any time. Apply for a loan. It's easy when you bank online. We make life easier with choices that suit you. CIBC, First Caribbean.
Wise Guy Entertainment and the Beam Agency in association with Tropical Gyros presents the 15th annual Laugh Fest. Laugh now, cry later. Live at Fusion Superplex. Starring your headliner, fresh off tour with D.L. Hughley and backed by pop theater man, Bodacious. Get ready for your feature comedian, Cisco Duran.
I'll tell you right now, that's what fat people do, okay? Fat people look at other fat people and we judge each other, all right? I saw the way you looked at me when I got on stage. Like, you looked at me, it was like, oh my God. Hey, baby, I'm not that fat, right? Jesus Christ.
And get ready for some of the 242's funniest comedians, Das Quay, BJ, and Shad Fur. All hosted by the Bahamian King of Comedy, Naughty. 2 big shows. Friday and Saturday, July 30th at Fusion Superplex. General admission, $40. Limited VIP, $60. Tickets go on sale Monday, July 18th at Fusion Superplex. Laugh Fest 2022, brought to you by the Platinum sponsors, Fine Threads, John Shoes, and KFC Nassau.
When faced with an illness like cancer, we band together, and we at Cleveland Clinic in Florida have your back. From advanced cancer treatments to extra safety measures at all of our locations, we're with you on this journey. For every infusion and follow-up, for every step of the way, for every care in the world. Cleveland Clinic in Florida. Get the care you need when and where you need it. To learn more or connect with a local representative, visit clevelandclinic.org/Caribbean.
Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9 of Laverne Gardner. And this morning we're changing gears. We're talking with the Public Hospitals Authority. We're looking forward to this discussion this morning. Joining us in studio, very pleased to have with us the Managing Director, Abinette Roll, and the Board Chairman, Andrew Edwards. Great to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
All right, let's get that. Oh, there we go. All right. So I just want to ask you about this Abinette Roll, if you don't mind. If you can give us an update on the migrants from this tragedy over the weekend. We know some have been hospitalized. How many are in the hospital at the moment?
So presently, if you're talking about the deceased, we have 17 individuals who unfortunately lost their lives yesterday, amounting that's 16 females, of which one of them is a toddler. And then we have one male. And so they are in the morgue, and we are working with our partners, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, as well as the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, in moving forward. And so today we are scheduled, and really should be starting momentarily, the complete ID of the bodies, so that the police and the rest can move on with the processing of those and being able to liaise with family members and otherwise. We would have also seen a few of those who had left the hospital and were stable enough to go to the detention center. Okay. And then we had about 3 of those who had overstayed because they had conditions such as dehydration and near drowning symptoms. And so they would have been detained at the hospital. One of the males should have been discharged and 2 females would have been left. So as soon as I go in office this morning, I'll be able to tell if the remainders are still in the hospital.
Yeah. Quite a horrible situation there. Does that a situation that overwhelm the morgue? How does the morgue work at this time with a tragedy like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Normally, it can overwhelm the morgue. Fortunately for us, the hospital administrator and moving with our partners within country had already reserved some external coolers that we do have for overflow. So we had the opportunity yesterday to have a cooler just for these deceased. And so they are there. So presently, outside of the full movement and working, we don't have any problems with this, which is most important to us.
All right. So we know you have a lot of exciting things to talk about this morning, but the BHA and the hospitals that fall under the BHA have been in the news quite a lot, of course. Just a few weeks ago, the health minister saying that we have a crisis at Princess Margaret Hospital. He's saying it's manageable, but it's a crisis nonetheless. Paint the picture for us. What are we really looking at? And we're going to break for news in just a moment. So give us a little teaser of what we're really seeing. We're hearing about wards that are closed, and we read that list of all the problems, condemned AC units and more, and the bed capacity. But how bad is it? What are we really looking at?
So first of all, I want to, always remind the Bahamian public that Princess Margaret Hospital was actually built in 1952. So the infrastructure is 70 years old. So if we translate that even into humans, the older you get, the more, the ability to perform is diminished. So the same thing happens from the infrastructural world. So you are correct. We've had issues with stuff such as leakage with the roofs, and we've had them fixed. We also have issues with the ACs, and also being mindful that the hospital operates 24/7. And so for us to even do levels of maintenance and upgrade, we have to do it in the confines of patients. So we can never send patients home. So our ability now to move patients to other wards to take care of that, sometimes it's difficult. And we're finding it very difficult now, particularly with the shortage of nurses.
Right.
And so we've had to cope and deal with these issues. So it is critical. However, we're trying to find strategies to deal with those. So we've had funding for that, to be able to deal with that. And we're now moving very strategically to try and find nurses, recruit them, as well as retain our nurses. So we are having issues, but it's not only nurses, it's physicians, it's allied health as well. But we're working very closely with the board of directors, at the helm, Mr. Andrew Edwards, as well as the Minister of Health, to sort of bring resolve to some of the issues.
All right, we're going to pick this up in just a bit. We're going to break for news and be back. Thank you so much. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9. We are streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 and BTC Flow Channel 612. You can tweet us at Morning Blend 969 or Facebook.com/Morning Blend 969. Text us 422-4796. And now 8:25, time for another check of your weather for today, brought to you by Bahamas First Insurance. We've got a surface trough that will create some unsettled weather, while a high-pressure ridge will generate strong to moderate to strong winds over the area. For all areas today, look for partly cloudy to cloudy, hot and breezy conditions with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Thunderstorms may be strong to severe at times. Smoke should exercise caution in the northwest Bahamas, and an advisory is in effect for the southeastern islands. Temperatures today getting up to around 92 Fahrenheit, 33 Celsius, but that heat index will make it feel like 108 degrees Fahrenheit, 42 Celsius. So being advised to remain hydrated and limit outdoor activities, especially during afternoon hours. Overnight lows tonight getting down to a warm 79 Fahrenheit, 26 Celsius. In your extended outlook, high pressure will sustain moderate to strong winds again, while the surface trough will trigger unsettled weather as it glides westwards toward southern Florida. So for tomorrow, Tuesday, partly cloudy to cloudy, hot and breezy with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Wednesday, partly sunny, hot and breezy with the chance of a few quick passing showers. Expecting drier conditions come Thursday as a plume of Saharan dust will move into the area. The tropics are also quiet. Tropical cyclone information not expected during the next 5 days. That's Morning Blend Weather Check, brought to you by Bahamas First Insurance. Bahamas First Insurance, still the first and only local insurance company and agency network that lets you buy car and home insurance 100% online. Try it at bahamasfirst.com. And another check of your traffic flow this morning brought to you by RBC. For all of life's moments, there's one Visa Classic credit card. Just a reminder that we had reports of an overturned vehicle on John F. Kennedy Drive this morning as you approach Munnings Road and the roundabout with Southwest Ridge. That's westbound on JFK this morning, so keep that in mind if you're in that part of the island. Gladstone Road, not looking bad for you, though, and so is Mile Butler Highway, not looking so bad this morning. The issue is traffic there, westbound, between the roundabouts, between Blue Hill Road and the East Street roundabout, and you might want to avoid Independence Drive if you can. Robinson Road is looking better, and Soldier Road is as well. Also, Eastern Road is a nightmare. Traffic is backed up pretty much to Fox Hill Road from the Village Road area. Village Road is closed from East Bay Street to Harmony Hill Road, and there are major delays there. If you can, avoid Eastern Road. Bernard Road and Prince Charles Drive looking much better for you this morning. That's your real-time traffic in the Morning Glen Traffic Alert, brought to you by RBC. Experience cashless purchasing power and chip and pin security with your RBC Visa Classic credit card. Manage your day-to-day expenses and apply today at rbc.com/Caribbean/Visa Classic. And on Guardian Radio 96.9, Dwight Strachan along with Laverne Gardner. We are talking with Managing Director of the Public Hospitals Authority, Abinette Roll, and the Chairman of the Board, Andrew Edwards. And we're having a great conversation. We had an interesting talk off air as well. Before the break, you highlighted some of the challenges. They're decades-old challenges with Princess Margaret Hospital, and we haven't even begun to start to talk about the RAND with my co-hosting Grand Bahama. We'll get to that in a bit. But how do we get ourselves out of this? What do? We talked a little bit about it off air. And it's the public has a misconception, it seems. We got that last week with some of our texters and callers about whose responsibility this is and the way out of this, and that money will be required, and of us, the taxpayers. Some believing that we already do enough and that this is just bad management. What do you say to that?
It's a combination of things. And reality is that we're in a state where things are not as they should be. Bahamians deserve better service. They deserve better of the hospitals and the institutions managed by the Public Hospital Authority. What we have done at this point is to look systematically at some of the issues, and as opposed to putting the Band-Aid that we're used to year after year, this is 23 years of the Public Hospital Authority, we're trying to look at least medium-term, long-term solutions to some of these issues. Mm-hmm. We know that staffing is an issue, and so we're looking for other places abroad to bring in some of the much-needed talent that we require. We're also looking internally to address some of those issues at home. One of the things that is going to be a major focus over the next few years is the PHA Academy, which is sort of in-house learning and training institute, which will allow us to provide certification to a lot of the people in-house, upgrade skills, determine those areas where we have shortages, and trying to address those head-on. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a real major focus. I know that it's kicking off in September. We have EMT courses that will be not just for persons inside the PHA, but we are also trying to assist with improving ambulatory services throughout the Family Islands, looking at phlebotomy, things of that sort, where people will be able to provide some of these services in the Family Islands that will negate the need for persons to jump on a plane to come to Nassau for some basic things. Mm-hmm. And so these are ways that we're trying to decompress, get the numbers out of the hospital, but also looking at our long-term issues in terms of having the necessary skills, the necessary allied health professionals, and Also looking at our nursing shortages, and how do we address that in a real serious way, realizing that we have a lot of competition abroad in terms of retaining our own nurses.
Yeah. What can you do about that? I mean, we were talking about this off air. We know nurses are getting six-figure salary offers elsewhere. What options do we have?
Yeah, so, we are not going to be able to compete head on with some of the remuneration packages within the US and Canada and even the UK because they're going to those three places. However, I think we have a wonderful opportunity to learn to, one, treat persons with respect. That's what I'm hearing. And the way that they are treated. And so we are doing our very best as a PHA family to improve that. And I think one of the things is as we improve the inside, which is our people, and I'm all about people, right? And when I speak people, I talk about my employees as well as the patients that must come to us for care. And so we're trying to improve that. And so, as the chairman said, we'll be doing things through the PHA Academy that is well on its way. And it's first a class that will start in September. And we're doing it holistically. It's not only the PHA. We're including all of healthcare, and that includes the Ministry of Health. The other components that we are definitely working on is the improvement of infrastructure in the interim, as well as moving forward with the new hospital, hospitals, I should say, both in Grand Bahama as well as in New Providence. And so we're trying to make their environment comfortable. We're trying to ensure that they are safe at work. So there are some stuff as well as we are moving with our negotiations. And as a part of that, the minister has been working strategically along with myself and his ministry to ensure that we are building in some incentives so that persons would want to remain home. So we can't complete in salary, but we can do some other things that make them want to stay home and take care of their own. And so we're working with that. I'm sure very soon you'll hear us about some of those things, because I want to remind people that everybody does not want to leave. Okay, some people want to, and I guess it's a right, but everybody doesn't want to leave.
Right.
And so we mitigate that by making the environment safe, comfortable, and then also improving remuneration. And we are reviewing those
All right,
at
so
this time.
you mentioned new hospitals. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, Laverne, you have a question? Yep.
Yes, Mr. Rowe, what is the general public, those who are going to the hospital, who have to be in hospital, how can we help?
So that's a great question. So how you can help is, first of all, by that open community over the past few months. And this is a part of what we're doing here today. For so long, we have not allowed persons to really express their concerns so that we could really deal with them head on. And I always tell people a complaint from a patient is a gift to an organization. It is definitely telling you that something is not right and we need to fix it. And so instead of becoming defensive, just look at it and let's find ways to deal with it. So I would like the public to, advise us on things that we are doing well so that we could commend persons as well, but also tell us things that we're not doing so well. Another element is, we have some fees and we do understand the economic status within country, but we do have individuals who have the ability to pay and they choose not to pay. That would help. We have this perception, like the chairman alluded to earlier, that healthcare in the public sector is free, but it's not free. Healthcare comes with a cost. And so as little as it is, until we're able to do differently, I feel if persons can pay, that will help as well, because instrumentation, technology, and equipment is a big couple of dollars. And so the public can, one, open dialogue and communication, and then also assist us to assist you by paying on some of the things that you can do. We do understand that you may not have it all, and therefore we have programs through the business office that you'll be able to pay on your bill, like we say in the Bahamas. And so let's see it as a partnership, because at the end of the day, I keep reminding them I'm getting older too. And, we won't be able to have the private insurances for some of us who may hold them. And we need the same public sector. So why not fix it now?
Yeah. So you have a challenge with people paying the fees, but some of the fees, I don't know if you want to talk about that on air, but off air you were telling me that some of these fees are really quite antiquated, and these are not in line with the realities of today. Let's talk about that and how much of a hindrance that is for those who actually do pay the fees.
Right. So we are operating on what we call gazetted fees. And these have been in place for decades. Wow. Same fees. And so we know, for example, Kentucky doesn't cost what it cost 30, 40 years ago. But we're operating on those same fees. Exactly. From some of the complaints I've seen a few weeks ago.
Right.
But those are the fees that we're operating on. So ambulance services, we're looking at, $50 and $30. Registration fees, $10. You go in, you break a limb. The services, you're looking at, less than $50 at the end of the day. And we know that if we go anywhere else in the Bahamas, the cost is so much more. And so we encourage it, can afford. I mean, it may seem like just a small amount. It might seem like a hassle, but it goes a long way in terms of us providing the medication, maintaining the equipment, paying the salaries, just paying the electricity to continue to run the hospital. It is an expensive venture and it's an expensive undertaking. And the more that you pay, it helps and translate into the better service that you get at the end of the day.
Have you done an audit to say how many people are not, what percentage people are paying or aren't paying? Do we know how serious it is?
So we have done over the years. I don't have that figure here, and that's something that we can probably share futuristically as we move towards that level of improvement. But we have done the data.
Is it a crisis level though, where people
Well, we use crisis level. I don't like the word crisis unless we really need to use it. But what I can say is persons are not being compliant. Those who can are not being compliant to do it. And so we need to start to get the message. And I think once the public begins to see the reality where the monies go, and they'll begin to appreciate. And I also think sometimes people are reluctant simply because the level of care or response, and this is why we're really trying to improve that as well. That is not an excuse to pay, but you would hear people say sometimes, if my experience is not good, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And if you're not going to force me to do it, then why should I do it? And so it's really, that's why we want this collaborative approach. And as we improve our processes and our systems and the way that we take care of patients, we'd also want the patients to be mindful that, the cost of care is really not free.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked a bit about PMH. Let's talk about the RAND. We know there's been so many issues there, the hurricane as well. Where do things stand at this point with the RAND? What can you tell us?
So we, once again, working with them, seeing a lot of things. So they would have had infrastructural damages secondary to Dorian. And we're dealing with those issues, dealing with partners on the outside. We've also had the similar issues at Princess Margaret Hospital. One of the things, though, secondary to Dorian is not having adequate space. We call it real estate to do some things. And so you would have heard some complaints in the media. And we are moving strategically to ensure that we're fixing those so that when the patients do come, they're in a comfortable environment, they are able to be assessed or triaged, and then be able to move on. One of the things as well, Dwight, that we're facing, and we'd really like community involvement, and if this is the only thing you take from me today, is we have a lot of borders. And
we've heard about this.
So, and it's in both Grand Bahama and in New Providence. Yeah. And we're encouraging family members really to take that active role and to come back for your loved one. If you are having challenges, that is whether you can accommodate them still at home or you're having problems with cost, come and have a conversation with us so that we can deal with our partners in social services and other private entities to be able to assist. But when you have borders in the hospital, not only does it clog the hospital in terms of the availability for beds for those persons who need it, you now put those persons who would have been clear to go home at risk for getting reinfections because they're now in the environment. And so these are some of the approaches that we have to do collaboratively as we move forward.
Are these mainly seniors, or what are we talking about?
We now have a mix.
Oh, boy.
We have from infants to seniors. We have persons in between as well. And so we're working, so when we talk about the infants and the neonates, mostly with social services, but we're having those persons anywhere between 40s all the way up to the 80s. They're being left there by their loved ones. Wow. So unfortunate. And so we're struggling to try to get them in places, but we're urging family members, not to abandon them. Have the conversation and see if we can work with you to have that done.
Yeah. The non-payment of fees, that's an issue in Grand Bahama as well, or is it mainly PMH?
It's across the board in the public health sector. It's not only the PHA.
Right.
It's the community clinics as well.
Can you say how much is owed? I know you couldn't say what percentage, but what are we talking about here?
We don't have that number for us, but look, it takes about a little less than $300 million to run the Public Hospital Authority annually. Income around $10 million or less. And so you can see the disparity is considerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as the MD said, we are looking to improve our services and justify the fact that payment ought to be made. And I don't know if she would wish to talk about, or at least I will, about we're revamping our patient advocacy program. And so there are presently patient advocates in the hospital who are really the liaison between the patient, medical professionals, families. But what we're doing is this is a keen focus over the next year, 2 years, where we're trying to beef up, revamp, retool these persons. So we know there are a lot of people who go in and they say, I'm having a bad experience at the Rand, or I'm having a bad experience at Princess Margaret Hospital, but there's no one to talk to. There's no one to talk to in terms of getting the doctor's attention and saying, hey, you treated me, but I'm still not feeling well. And so this is really where we're trying to beef things up to ensure that everyone who leaves our facilities can speak to someone and say, I'm satisfied with the service I got. These are my address. How can these be addressed? And that we take it as a serious matter, because at the end of the day, we're here to provide a service and to provide a good service to people.
Now, we know we have a major shortage, staffing shortage issue, right? But we had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, of people saying that the nurses and other hospital workers from other parts of the world, that either there's a language barrier or just the way they deal with patients is different from what people might expect from Bahamians. Are you getting that as well? Is that a big problem there and it creating issues?
So, we've heard that as well, and we've experienced some of those as well. And so, yes, when we start, bringing persons into our country, we need to think about, diversification. And so there's different changes in culture. And yes, we do have language barriers that can cause a delay in patient care. We are also dealing with those as well. One of the things the PHA has started to do is now engage persons to be able to help persons not only converse, but the ability to write properly in the English language. And so, persons would have been complaining, and I know that's where there's the elephant in the room with the Cubans. And I think persons need to realize that when that happened, very, very rightfully so, the Prime Minister and the Minister would have expressed previously, that was first done to help us with COVID. We had a COVID crisis. There were pleas to other countries to assist, and they did not. And Cuba opened their arms. Those nurses did extremely well in helping. Now when we sought to integrate them deeper into tertiary care, it becomes difficult. But there is a role that they can play. So we are going to retain some of them, and they're only here for short term. And so those that we will be working with, we will be helping by assisting them with their conversationals in English. And it happens in every country, right? And so it's not as bad as people say, but I want to drive people back to the intent. The intent was in crisis mode. They came to help us with COVID, and I want to say that they did an excellent role.
Yeah. All right, so this is a text in response to the example you gave earlier, oh boy. So they're saying the fast food restaurant that you mentioned is not a human right, but healthcare is. How is it that a country our size cannot supply free healthcare? Poor Cuba has free, excellent healthcare.
Well, I mean, we look at what the government has to provide at the end of the day. I mean, it's a lot. And in terms of the level of taxes we pay, yes, we pay taxes in the Bahamas, but it is much less than most of the region, much less than the rest of the world. Unless we're prepared to pay those sort of taxes, then we're going to have to find some ways to bridge that gap.
Yeah, and I think
Cuba's an unfair example.
Correct. I was going to say that's extremely. A different regime.
It's a different system.
Yeah, so different.
Yes.
And you all
and we are trying to
wouldn't want to, I suspect, be in a system like that.
And just to point out, I mean, we're not only looking to the public to help bridge that gap. we are trying to find unique and creative ways of bridging that gap as well. We have in the process of establishing the PHA foundations. One of them, which is a local foundation, another one, which is U.S.-based, properly registered, incorporated. We have just gotten a few persons who have agreed to be directors who are well-known Bahamians, the diaspora throughout the world, and also friends of the Bahamas who, are well-known, who have agreed to assist us in raising funds, in identifying resources, equipment, things of that sort, in terms of donations. And also in the local foundation, we're also looking for persons in the business community, persons with means to come forward and be a part of what we're doing at the PHA, helping us. Our new focus now is to, renew, refresh, reimagine the PHA, and that's what we're doing at this point. We know that people have certain misconceptions or certain perceptions as it is, but we are trying to reimagine what it could be. And we're asking people to come forth, be a part of this, volunteer, not to be quiet. If you have thoughts as to where we can go, the MD doesn't have all the answers. My board doesn't have all of the answers. The staff and senior persons who've been there for the last 20 plus years, it's obviously we don't have all of the answers. And we want to hear from people. We want to hear your ideas. We want you to contribute. We want you to volunteer your time. We want you to volunteer in any way you can, and we want you to give and give back to the PHA and what we're trying to do, because at the end of the day, a healthier society is going to benefit all of us.
Tell us again how people can contribute if they have ideas what they should do.
They have ideas, they can reach out to the Director of Foundations and Community Engagement at the Public Hospital Authority, Ms. Alana Major, and they can reach out. She'll have different ways that they can get involved, and we really welcome them at this time.
All right, I want to get to the new hospitals in a bit, but this texter, it says this comes up often as well. Undocumented patients who do not pay their way. Is that always the case that they don't pay their way? But how much of a burden is this putting on the hospitals in the country?
I'm not saying so. The irregular migrants. I'm not sure. What we have found, though, when they seek care, once they have the ability to pay, they do pay. But we also understand that some of the reasons they're here is because they don't have the ability to pay as well. Mm-hmm. I cannot speak to the level of burden on the hospital in terms of comparing their payment versus the resident who doesn't pay. But I do know that information and research has proven that once they have been told that they have a fee, they make every effort to pay or even set up a systems. Now, they're the ones who may be documented who would do that. The undocumented, well, there's no way of knowing. However, I want the public to understand that at the end of the day, if you come to any public entity, whether you have the money or not, we have an obligation to serve you. So cost, even though being a barrier in some instances, is not a barrier for you having access to care within the Public Hospitals Authority. And so we really want to make that clear. What we just want to make clear is, even though there's the perception that cost is free, there is nothing called free health care, all right? And we have to make sure, if we're going to move forward, Dwight, with, the type of technology that the Bahamian people want and deserve, then that comes with a fee. And the government cannot carry that cost alone. And so we have to move forward with the foundations, as was noted by the chairman, as well as public-private partnerships as well to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so that's most important to us.
All right, so let's talk about the hospitals. What is the plan right now? Are we still in the devising this plan forward? Where do things stand right now?
Right. So you'd have heard the minister speak to several things that were being done, as well as in Grand Bahama. He spoke about the works that were being done to the land to ensure that it was suitable for us to build. That's a geotechnical work. And we've advised that is completed. And so you will hear more of that from the Minister of Health and Wellness in relations to that. Is in Nassau. You'll be able to hear from the minister where we are. But we are really excited to be able to have that happen shortly. And I think the Bahamian people would be excited as well in relations to that. I'm not sure which property we'll be starting first, it may be Grand Bahama, most likely Grand Bahama. But as soon as we get information, we'll be able to share that fully with you. And I'm sure the Minister of Health and Wellness would love to do that himself as well, because this is something that is really dear to his heart moving forward.
Yeah. We talked about this last week on the show, and it comes up often that what we might need, because people are concerned about where Princess Margaret Hospital is right now, Shirley Street, how difficult it is to get there. It's away from major population centers on the island. That we need trauma centers, smaller trauma centers, and that maybe PMH could be a specialized hospital, or that another specialized hospital be built somewhere. But if we have a trauma center in Carmichael, a trauma center out east, trauma center out west, that we might be able to handle what we're seeing now, and you go there for treatment at PMH. Is that being considered? What are we looking at, especially for New Providence?
Right. So at present, this is beyond the PHA, but we're all one family at the end of the day when we're dealing with healthcare, and we all work together. But the urgent care, a lot of the clinics are now being upgraded and equipped for urgent care. So a lot of the things that you come to the Princess Margaret Hospital for, you'll be able to deal with at the clinics themselves, as well as extending the hours. What happens really right now is that people end up at Princess Margaret Hospital, the clinic closes at 8 o'clock, clinic closes at 9 o'clock. I have nowhere else to get a diagnosis. I feel really bad. I don't know if this chest pain is something more. Is it gas? Is it my heart? And so they end up at Princess Margaret Hospital, which basically overburdens and clogs the system there. And so the intent and what is going on is that these some key clinics throughout the island are being upgraded, and the hours are going to be extended so that we can take some of that burden off of Princess Margaret Hospital.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm a little wary. Let's take this call, and then we'll take some messages. Good morning, caller. You are on Morning Blend. We're talking with Robinette Roll, the managing director of the PHA, and Andrew Edwards, the chairman of the board. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Strachan, and your guest.
Hi. Good morning.
You know, Mr. Strachan, we've been talking about these things over and over. First of all, the average person just to get to the PMH is difficult. First of all, imagine you're sick with a bad leg or a bad back. You got to walk up a hill because there's no parking space ever. And then next door to the PMH, between Collins Avenue and the hospital, there's a massive piece of property we call Collins House, which is being used to store old derelict records and everything, although we need to keep them somewhere. But why, for the heaven's sakes, we can't use that property next to the hospital and add on to the hospital? We don't have no place to move it out of the city. Use those grounds for parking. Use those grounds for adding on an extension to the hospital. Make it larger, and so forth. Why we got to keep going over and over? See, the elites and so forth, they can have a chauffeur-driven car, drop them to the front door. And people pick them up in wheelchairs and take them where they want to go.
Okay, let's get them to respond to that. I mean, parking is a serious problem.
Yeah, parking. Yeah. And so the caller is correct. Parking is a problem, not only for the patients, but as well as staffing.
Yeah.
And I know for many years we've been looking at strategies. We've also entered into agreement with the Anglican diocese to even use some of their parking. And it's at this stage, we really don't have any more real estate. That's what I talk about. Mm-hmm. And so this is why, outside of even going into the facility for care, the ability to just park your vehicle is a concern. And we have done studies to really sort to assess whether it is best to get a greenfield space and just move to a new hospital versus staying there and seeing if we can extend. And I know there were talks even all the way to the east, trying to get some of that property all the way to Collins Avenue and possibly go to the south. So we would have to hear more about those decisions. But the caller is correct in relations to parking. It's difficult. And then even as we move forward, really ensuring as we move whether we are going to remain on the property and just do that in a phased approach to get things done, or we're going to a new space, workflow, and that flow to ensure that persons are not all over the place. Because the caller is talking about, now having an injury and having to climb a hill. And unfortunately, because we don't have spaces, a lot of them are out of the main hospital and you have to go up the hill. So it does pose a challenge to the patient who may have ambulatory issues. And so, as the chairman stated earlier too, some of these things we really feel can be dealt with in the primary health setting, where we have the extended hours and also what we call ambulatory care. So the persons could go there for their care. It's one level area, there's better parking. And so collaboratively we're working, along with the Ministry of Health to be able to extend that. So persons who do not need to come up there for dressings and all of that may be able to do that in the clinics.
Ms. Roll, Ms. Roll, is this also going to be extended to Grand Bahama as well?
What element? I'm not sure what is being extended.
The extension and the expansion of the clinic.
So and just for clarity on that, and that's a great question, the clinics in Grand Bahama are under the management of the Public Hospitals Authority. So right now we're working with them as well and extending hours to be able to take care of the patients. But here again, we are strengthening our human capital, because when we extend hours and the further we go, we're talking about manpower. And I can tell you, the nurses, no exaggeration, they are leaving in droves. And so we're trying to handle that. But the extent of our hours are also to extend as well to the population. Because, even when you have children, a lot of times you want to, the children call, they're sick, and you try to finish work, and then you're just wanting to see somebody after 5. And then after 5, the clinics are closed. And so we're looking for that extension as well.
Yeah. All right, besides, are there any particular fields that you're really looking for, desperately looking for?
Allied health professionals. We always talk about the nurses and the doctors, but there's also allied health. We're looking for physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. We're looking for pharmacists. We're looking for medical technologists in the lab. A patient, when they come to hospital, they come full circle. So you're seen by the nurse, you're assessed by the nurse, you're seen by the doctor, but you need some labs, and you need to have those professionals to be able to take them off or retrieve them as well as test them. And then when you have care, you need rehab services, you need physical therapy. There is a whole slew of persons under the umbrella of allied health that we need to start attracting. And I think we need to start it from the schools.
I was going to say, are you in the
Yes.
schools? Are you talking to them?
And so we're beefing that up now. We have a dynamic Deputy Director of Communications, Ms. Diasanti Small, who will be working with a team to get some stuff done so that we're going into the schools, we're attracting them from early, and we're really trying to put a listing of those critical needs in healthcare. And they're not always only around nurses and physicians. There are other persons who really make up healthcare that we're looking for.
From what you're seeing, is the interest out there? Are Bahamians aware of these other opportunities? What are you seeing?
I don't think that they are fully aware, right? Allied health seems to be a strange category to them. And so we're going to break that down so they appreciate who they are and also see the benefit, right? We're very limited. I think right now in country, if at most we may have 2 speech therapists that I know about, and they're all in private practice, right? Rehab services. Listen, from the time you twist your to having a stroke, what we call a cerebral vascular accident, they need to come back into the workplace and their daily lives, but they have to do it first with occupational health, the ability to cope, and then they need the physical therapy, and then they need to be re-engaged on how to speak. So all of these elements. So we just have to do a better job at it.
Yeah. Let's take one more call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Doing well.
To the lady, I'm a 75-year-old Bahamian, and they have an appointment system in place now that, sometimes you don't answer the phone. I just tried calling them a minute ago. I think they're supposed to be away from 9 o'clock. But I have a rare kidney disease, and I was supposed to see that kidney specialist in 2019. Because of the COVID, there wasn't seeing no patient, but after they opened up, and I went there with my card to show them that I have an appointment with the kidney specialist, you have to go through a new appointment. and on my card say that they're supposed to see me on such and such a day from 2019, 20, and things like that. What can I do about that, sir?
Sure, and thank you so much, caller, for bringing that to my attention. First of all, I'd like to give you a number that you can reach out so that I can really speak to you and really find a way to assist you. You can call 502-1400 and just ask for the office of the managing director and let them know that I've asked you to call me and I would be able to assist you. But what I can say, what may have happened, if we're talking the end of 2019-20, we were all in that COVID era and dealing with issues, and a lot of appointments were canceled secondary happening in the hospital. But I would be more than happy to speak with you and deal with your case and any other persons out there who may have some concerns, and I'll be able to deal with it as well as direct you to the various persons that will be able to assist you.
All right, so that brings up the other issue that Dr. Darville, the health minister, brought up. That a few weeks ago, you were, his words, bursting at the seams. A few weeks later, are things more manageable now? What are we looking at now?
Yes, I'm happy to report that we are doing extremely well. However, these things happen in episodes, right? So today we may be doing well, and then we just have this whole influx of persons coming in. And so we did have a lot of patients that needed admission, and, it was compounded by persons not knowing that they had COVID. And so a part of your pre-screening is to do your test. And as a result of the test, they were asymptomatic, and it showed that they had COVID, and so they had to be relocated. When you now start to shift outside of the hospital, therein is the problem with staffing. And so we were very happy that Doctors Hospital assisted us with that and continue to assist us as the need arises to be able to assist us to care for the patients. But we have been able to open up wards, and that provided us the opportunity to deal with some of the infrastructural repairs that needed to happen and other things. And so we have been able to open up wards to allow patients to be in there. So right now, we are
Yeah. Laverne asked us earlier about what people can do. I know that we had a colleague here who did a bed drive a few years back. Is that something you can do? How do we go about helping in that manner?
Definitely. I mean, as the managing director would have said, you can contact her office, you can contact the director of foundations and community engagement, which is something new because we really want to get the community involved. Mm-hmm. This is their PHA. This is their hospital. For the majority of persons, they have no choice but Princess Margaret Hospital at the end of the day or the Rand Memorial Hospital. And so we want people to get involved. We want people to come forward. We want people to help us to reimagine the Public Hospital Authority. Mm-hmm. And we want them also to continue to give feedback with regards to their experience, help us to improve. And I just want to share for the public the feedback lines for those who have had experiences, those who are having challenges, that they can reach us, that we can assist them as much as possible. At Princess Margaret Hospital, the feedback line, and that's 825-3438, 825-3438. And at the Rand Memorial Hospital, 350-6700, extension 2079. 350-6700-2079. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your experience. We want to hear what went well. If there are still concerns, if there are still matters outstanding, if you still don't feel well, let us know. We have a duty to do the best that we can by you.
Okay. All right. And Abner Earl, people are asking for your number again. That one that you
Sure.
gave.
I feel like I'm not going to have any sleep, but it's okay. That's what healthcare is all about. It's 502-1400, and that will put you directly in the space of my assistance. And so just let them know that I would advise you to call me on a matter, and I will definitely get back to you. And as the chairman said, we will also ensure that it gets across to the various organizations to be able to help you with that.
All right. We're running out of time. Just want to ask you a couple more questions that are coming in on our text line. So it says, to what extent is the PHA integrating renewable energy like solar or EVs in assisting with reducing your energy bill that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. So basically in our new space, that is one of the main things that we have incorporated in that new design, right? Moving into that green space and solar energy. And so for our new buildings, that is definitely top of the line, because at the end of the day, not only providing a clean space, and we talk about, the quality of the air, but we're also looking at cost savings, and this will be able to help the government. Some of the things we're doing now in our physical environment right now is, encouraging people to turn off lights when you do this to sort of reduce costs. But in our new infrastructure, in that design, I can assure you, we've moved with that level of thinking in terms of that green space and all of that, as well as, even some of the space, actually, that is really some of the things that must be ingrained in that process as we move forward. So very, very excited for that. And I just want to say, Dwight, we do recognize that, the public does have a voice. And that's why we don't take it lightly when you complain. And that's why I am always willing for them to reach out directly to me. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is to fix it. We want to hear from you. Like the chairman says, we do not have all the answers. That is why we ask you, because you are the person receiving care on the other end. And so we want to hear from you. But we really want you to now begin to trust us a little more. Reimagine how you would wish your healthcare system to look like, feel like, and so that we can work with you to really make that happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but you should see that gradual change. So as we refocus, as we renew, we recommit, we want you to reimagine how you want healthcare to look in the Bahamas.
All right, we've got about a minute or so left. You got PHA month and a fun run walk as well. Tell us about that. When is that?
The fun run walk is this Saturday.
Oh, okay.
This Saturday, starting at PHA headquarters, 3rd Terrace, Centerville. Mm-hmm. And we welcome people and institutions, businesses as a team to sign up, be a part of this, help us to help you by getting in shape. We're going to have a lot of activities after the fun run walk. There are going to be a lot of demonstrations on exercise, etc., healthy foods. I understand that BAMSI might be a part of what's going on Saturday in terms of making sure we're eating some good things, homegrown, natural food. Nice. And there are going to be just ways of showing us how to stay healthy. There will be glucose testing, blood pressure testing, etc., that will be going on that day. And so we're asking the community to come out. This is part of reimagining, being a part of the Public Hospital Authority, helping us to help you.
Right.
And so all working together. And so this is a team effort. And we want you to come out on Saturday. If I'm correct, it's a 6:30 start, but we want you in place 6 o'clock. Sign up registration, get your T-shirt, get your number, be on the road, and let's do this, Bahamas.
Okay. All right. Is this PHA month or next month?
This is PHA month.
So we're almost at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
This is
All
PHA
right.
month.
All right. Wonderful stuff.
23 years.
Yeah. Wow. That went by very quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
Very quickly.
Well, thank you for being here. Hopefully, we will talk more frequently. It's been a good conversation. The phone lines are all lit up, but we are out of time.
We will continue to be available to talk, to dialogue. We want to have frank conversation. We don't want to hide. We want to say what's really going on. We want to say what we're doing to work on these things. And we want to build, like the managing director said, that trust with the Bahamian public again. We want you to trust the Public Hospital Authority. When we tell you this is what's going on, you know it's the truth, you know that you're in good hands, and you know really what's going on and how you can help us to make it better as well.
Sounds wonderful. Robinette Roll, Andrew Edwards, thank you both for being here this morning.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Morning Blend Business, we are talking with the former Environment Minister, Romuald Ferreira. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up.
Well, mother said, another party, another year, everybody. Here we go, it's Novi. Saka Bay. We having a party. If you don't know, ask somebody.
Sign the basketball teams up today for the Michael Scooter Reed. Peace on the streets, basketball. Basketball Classic, August 1st through the 7th at the Hope Center. Get ready for the Bong with the Phil Lightburn Slam Dunk Contest, then Energy 3-point shootout, along with all championship games, live in living color at the Kendall G. Liza Gymnasium, Sunday, August 7th, beginning at 5 p.m. That's the Michael Scooter Reed Peace on the Street Basketball Classic. For more information, contact 601-484.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Blend Business on this Monday, July 25th, 2022. Welcome back to our Morning Blend listeners. Once again, I'm Dwight Strachan along with Laverne Gardner with us on this Monday morning. And today we are going to be talking with former Environment Minister Romuald Ferreira. There's been a lot of environmental news in the last few weeks and he's going to give us his views on these issues. Romuald Ferreira, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while.
Welcome, and thank you for having me. Good morning, and good morning to all your guests.
Thank you so much.
Morning.
All right, so I want to begin with what happened in Exuma last week, the diesel spill there. And, we have a lot of experts in the country, apparently. And people were saying, it's just diesel, no big deal. You're a scientist, in addition to all the many other things that you are. Let's talk about it. Diesel. That's a serious thing, is it not? To have a spill like that on the water, people were saying it's so light and it can be cleaned up easily. Is that the reality?
Well, let's explore that just a little bit further. And so everything in relation to the toxicity of diesel and everything in relation to how diesel will behave when it's spilled in water is going to. So we know that diesel is a hydrocarbon and it's a refined hydrocarbon. So it's going to float on top of the water. And so as you saw, as a result of that spill, the diesel was floating on top of the water. Now, contained within diesel itself are the toxic chemicals. So diesel is a name, dieseline, but it's actually a mixture, a combination of several different other chemicals. And amongst them are the benzenes and the toluenes and the xylanes that cause the problems to the environment. So diesel is a toxic substance. And the other type of fuel we use here is bunker C and gasoline, but these are all derivatives of crude oil. And so you're dealing with complex organic substances that are toxic. And so what you had was the release of 30,000 gallons of diesel. Put another way, you had a release of 30,000 gallons of toxic organic chemicals into a small bay area. And so obviously, that's going to have some sort of impact.
Let's talk about that. What are the potential impacts there?
Well, immediately after the oil would have been released into the water, it would start to spread and mix. And so there's this old convention that oil and water don't mix, but that's actually true to an extent, but there is an immiscible zone. There's a zone where there's emulsification, where the oil and water mixes together, but not completely. And so therefore, on the surface where you see the diesel floating, underneath that would be a column of emulsified or oily water or mixture of oil and water, all in that water column, all in that depending to the depth. So imagine you're dealing with about 15 to 20 feet higher water column then becomes impacted by the diesel spill. So it's not just what you see on the surface, it's also what you see or what you can't see beneath the surface as well.
All right, so if there's fish there, if there are birds, what impact could this have or has had already on them?
Well, we haven't had any wildlife reports, and I suspect they may be intimidated, but I'll leave that as a joke. But obviously, if there are fish in the area and they can't swim fast enough out of it, they're going to die. So fish would have been impacted. Slow-moving invertebrates that crawl along the seafloor, like conchs, whelks, curbs, those sort of things, they'd be impacted. But what would also happen, and this is a part of the danger with when you're dealing with hydrocarbons and they float on water. With the high tide, you'll have the oil starting to spread. With the movement of the water, the oil will spread around the coast. And you saw from some of the aerial imagery, the oil was moving away from the impacted spill area. And that's due to the chemical nature of diesel. It floats on the water, it moves with the tides. And once it moves around and gets into the mangrove systems, because mangrove trees directly respire with the air. And so that's what makes them so sensitive to these types of issues. Obviously, they would be impacted and they would die if it's in sufficient quantities. So the potential is there, depending on the environmental sensitivities around. And we already know that we're dealing with Exuma. So we're dealing with a relatively underdeveloped island in the Bahamas with lots of pristine areas. And so the danger is that body of water that was toxic and the oil that's floating on top would have moved around and did move.
So could it have gotten into the food chain or by now?
No.
No.
When you say food chain, I take that to mean the assimilation of carbon, up to human beings. I don't know.
Is that likely to happen at all?
Well, I mean, it will enter the food chain, and of course, because diesel is biodegradable, microbes will start to eat it, and those microbes will be eaten by bigger microbes, et cetera, moving on. But that process takes a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. And that's called the concentration of carbon or concentration of toxins up through the body. That takes a while, but it works the same way as when we had the discussion with plastics. When we had the plastic ban and we talked about microplastics and we said that microplastics enter the food chain, and we've seen it here in the Bahamas. It works the same way in the sense that once the smaller microbe starts to eat it, it enters in the food chain. But with 30,000 gallons in particular to this spill, I don't think that would be a likely outcome.
Okay.
But that being said, it's still a potentially very serious situation. And this is why cleaning up the spill afterwards as quickly as you can and containing it, trying to stop it from spreading, those are the efforts that usually tend to happen after a spill.
Right. All right. So last week we were being told that within 24 hours, most of the spill would likely have been cleaned up. That didn't quite happen, but they say the majority of it. How likely is it going to be that they can ever clean up the whole thing? Is that a possibility at all?
Well, some of it would have escaped. Some of it, you would never clean up the entire 30,000 gallons. I mean, that's impossible. Some of it would have escaped. Some of it would have beginning. The real question is what happens next? Because under this present regime of legislation that we left in place, there's an Environmental Planning and Protection Act. And under Section 55 of that act, of that very same act, offenses like these, releases like these are culpable. There's a liability here of $25,000 to $30 million. And so the whole framework of now how this spill has happened and our response to it, now that we have the legal framework, I mean, this is the real acid test. So I prefaced everything by, we talked about the chemical properties, and that has its place. But here we are now with a legislative framework that speaks exactly to this issue. And the Environmental Planning and Protection Act also extends culpability to the directors of companies. So no longer can you say, I was a corporate director and I'm absolved of liability. And it makes you liable for up to 10 years. So we have a piece of legislation in place that would deal with this. And it also calls for up to 3 times the assessed value in damages as a result of the spill. Mm-hmm. So the legislation and the penalties tie themselves to the assessed value. And this is what we're not seeing coming out as yet, I would imagine. I haven't seen anything about the assessed values. I haven't seen anything about if there was an oil spill contingency plan. We certainly don't know. A vessel like that moving throughout the Bahamas should have an oil spill contingency plan. They should be trained in it. That should be a public document where people can see. Those are the issues that we really need to focus on at this point in relation to that spill is really what happens next.
Mm-hmm. So this is the first test, I guess, since that legislation was put in place as far as...
There have been others because, for example, in Exuma right now, there's a development going on in Staniel Key. And this development, its carbon footprint says that it's a hotel. Its amenities, it can accommodate up to 135 or more people. I think it's up to 180 people. But in their planning application, they put down that it's a residential home. And the reason why you would do something like that is that you would escape the environmental impact assessment regulations, which come under the Environmental Planning and Protection Act. And so we see another type of challenge happening on the environmental landscape where against legislation and the refusal by government to enforce it. I think this is the issue that continues to generate concern, certainly for myself and other environmentalists, is the reluctance of the government to enforce these regulations. And to us and to me, this is tragic because climate change is more than just attending conferences. It's also enforcing the laws that are in place. And we see this being played out. And we're wondering what's going to happen next. And it'd be interesting to watch the observations flowing from both of these things because both issues are in Exuma. Exuma is really the spine of the country. 365 islands are in the Exuma chain. It stretches almost the entire length. A lot of development pressure. And so wherever the developers are going is where this law and the environmental law is most likely going to be applied. And you have a situation where BPL is delivering fuel in almost every island where they operate. So a potential oil spill like this can happen at any island where BPL floats fuel in to run their generators. And that's just about all of them. Scope for these things to happen and whether or not, and the regularity or the potential for the regularity of them is there. Mm-hmm. And this is why we have to now look at enforcement of the laws because we know that this is going to happen again. We know other developers are going to come in and try and circumvent the rules and try to avoid following the regulations. The question now we're at and the point we're at now is the enforcement of these laws.
What we can imagine that companies will say, "Hey, I'm gonna pay to clean it up," so there's no need for penalties, and I can imagine that some in governments might think like that as well. Well, fine, clean it up, and that's good. But what are the dangers of that? We can already figure that out. But I want to hear from you. Why is that not good enough? And why do there need to be harsher penalties for actions like this?
Well, the legislation sets out a framework that in situations like this, that along with the Ministry of Environment Act, which was a part of the compendium of legislation that we put in, that when there's a situation like this, yes, you pay to clean it up. But a big part of the damages to the assessed value is that if the damage to the assessed value, if that amount is higher than what you paid to clean up, then that differential goes towards funding public education and goes towards funding our marine protected areas. And we certainly have a lot of them. We put 46 in place before we left. And there were a number in place when we came to office. So these are some of the things that penalties like that go towards as well. So there's this idea of building up a conservation fund as a result of when incidents like this, when accidental spills will happen. I'm sure that release was an accident, deliberate in circumventing our environmental laws. And that is where the funds ought to go. And the law provides for it, for the creation of our environmental fund.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's talk about the companies and keeping the public abreast of what happens after this. I mean, people will say there's very little information was available after what happened in Grand Bahama with Equinor. Are they not more? Should they not be held to maintain the information flow with the public as to where things stand? There's just so many questions and guessing after all of this type of stuff.
Yeah, well, the spill at Equinor was one of heavy fuel oil, and it was on land. So you were dealing with a different type of fuel oil, which was much more viscous, thick and dense, and doesn't move the same way that diesel does. And it was on land, so the whole issue of high tide and low tide and moving with the currents and impacting the water column wouldn't have arisen. And we're just merely dealing with it percolating down to the water table. And information was released in the form of updates and in the form of recovery. And there was an oil spill contingency plan that was posted and approved. And there were records of the company's practice and due diligence to that effect. There were records to inspect, and they were there. So there was that. There were these things in place in that situation. There was also assessments on wildlife reports, how many animals would have been injured or damaged or even died. I made those pronouncements myself, I remember. And so you had all of that going on within that dynamic, which distinguishes from what happened in Exuma. You have none of that. You have the minister just saying, acting deputy prime minister, that there was 30,000 gallons spilled. You know that they can't, you don't know how much of that's been recovered. You don't know how much of what's recovered is actually diesel oil and not just a big oily water emulsion. You don't know where that emulsion, where all that stored oil is now. You don't know what the plans are going to be to how they're going to dispose of it, how they're going to move it back out off of Exuma. You don't know any of that. You don't know what the oil spill contingency plan is. Have people been trained to this effect? Was it approved by the Department of Maritime Affairs? All of these are unknowns. And so that is the really salient difference between these two incidents.
All right. We want to talk about some other issues as well, but we're getting some messages. And folks, you can text us as well and tweet us at MorningBlend969. Text us 422-4796 and call in. Do you think that your department, the department was created, which was very positive and progressive, has the staff and financial resources needed to fully implement its mandate across the country?
Of course, they have very, very talented people that work there, and they work very hard. Do they need more staff? Yes. More qualified young Bahamians? Yes. And the thing is that there's a whole cadre of them and they're coming out of the system, but we always need more. So my answer to that would be that this is why the enforcement of these situations becomes important, because the funds from that go to train potential Bahamian scientists. They go right back into the educational fund. And if you remember, just a few weeks ago, our ministers were in Africa talking about climate change. And there's a wonderful program going down there where the Norwegian government actually pays that government to preserve a portion of its forests. And they wanted to bring that concept to the Bahamas, whereby the Bahamas is paid a certain amount of money to preserve a portion of its seagrass beds or a portion of its corals, etc. And so all of this is tied together in the sense that that is one aspect of environmental responsibility, cashing in on carbon credits and raising money for resources through the environment. But the other aspect is enforcing the existing law. So both of those elements have to act concurrently and move towards a mutual goal. And that is sustainable development.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned it. Let's get your views on the country's plan to move forward with benefiting from these carbon credits. What do you make of it all? Are we going to see benefits of this anytime soon? Are we just going to encourage other countries out there to do more nonsense to put all of us in danger? Is that how this works? What do you see?
I think that the potential for carbon credits in the country to earn money off of carbon credits is real, and it's there. And it's actually happening now. This country earns credits off of carbon credits right now in the sense that we are a member of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund. And we are a member of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund through the Bahamas Protected Areas Fund. And what that means is that for preserving marine protected areas, like the 46 that we preserved back in 2019, the Bahamas gets paid for preserving that, in that they can access trust grant money. And so we already have the shapings of that. That's there right now, that's in place right now, that people are being employed from right now, that parks are being managed from right now. That is in place right now. So we already have a carbon credit system. So in that sense, and we led the region in this. And so in that sense, that already exists for us. It's up to us now to broaden it and go with what works. The climate change and carbon credit bill that was introduced talks about a governing body that is majority government owned. And that type of governing body can't get the financing from the carbon credits. And that is the rub. So what you see with the Bahamas Protected Area Fund is that it's not government controlled. And so they are able to access funds from the German Development Bank, from all of the European countries, the American countries, for the mere fact that those type of donors give money to governments for projects like that. And so the project in Africa that everybody went to visit, that the monies from that isn't managed by that country. It's managed by a board that's made up and comprising of the donor nations. And then they administer the project through an international agencies. So it's very little of that is controlled by the government, and that's how they tend to work. And so we already have a framework like that. And what we saw with that bill was the introduction of another type of framework where they're now trying to exert control. And we already know that that's not going to work because it hasn't worked anywhere else. And that's not how the flow of capital is right now in the environmental world. The governments don't donate money that way for environmental carbon credit projects.
All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about climate change in this hottest summer, it seems, of our lifetime, well, at least for now, and other concerns that you have about the environment here in the country and globally. We're talking with Romuald Ferreira, former Minister of the Environment and a scientist. And we'll be back with more Morning Blend Business in just a bit.
Chef, that's you?
Hey, Kay, how you doing?
Man, I good. I hear you expanding. That's true?
Yeah, so now you can eat at and own a slice of the gyro.
I like that. What I need to get started?
Go to awakx.com, pick tropical gyros, and click invest. It's that easy.
Is it expensive?
No, man, you can invest for just $9 a share with a minimum of 4 shares.
That's it? Man, I going online now. Go to awakx.com today to invest in tropical gyro. For more info, call 603-5270 or email invest@awakx.com.
It's regatta time again with Sand Dollar and the Rollville Development Associate, Rollville Regatta and Homecoming. All roads lead to Exuma, July the 28th through August 1st for Sand Dollar giveaways all weekend. Get ready for live performances, gospel night, battle of the DJs, boat sailing, mixology competition, and so much more. Come and hang out with the Sand Dollar team to learn about the Bahamian digital dollar. Use Sand Dollar at the regatta site to avoid having to worry about cash. Check out www.sanddollar.bs for more information about the digital dollar.
The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center is here to help small businesses throughout the entire Bahamas. To better serve you, we've made it easier to contact us. Call 461-7232, WhatsApp 359-0626 or 359-2394, email helpdesk@spdcbahamas.com, or submit a ticket when you visit our help center at accessaccelerator.org. The Access Accelerator, empowering small business.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options, we're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's time for your morning business report, brought to you by CFAL, revealing that modular offices for displaced Grand Bahama International Airport workers have arrived in the country and will be installed in short order. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation Chester Cooper has defended the Davis administration's efforts to improve the facility. He was responding to opposition leader Michael Pintard, who last week called on the government to urgently reveal its macro plan for the redevelopment of GBIA. Cooper said that before Pintard demands answers, he should apologize to the people of Grand Bahama for how abysmally the last administration treated them. He also said it was, quote, most astounding that while he is giving suggestions, neither shame nor humility compels him to acknowledge how terribly the last administration, during which he sat in cabinet, failed Grand Bahama. Cooper has announced that the government has shortlisted 3 entities for the redevelopment and management of a new world-class airport on Grand Bahama. It's expected to be built alongside the redevelopment of the Grand Lucayan Resort and is promised to be completed by January 2025. The Bahamas should embrace the European Union's global policies and coordination on regulations that govern the fintech space. That's according to Executive Director of the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, Christina Roll, making the comment Friday while she was a panelist during the councilors' discussion on the policy white paper on digital assets. She explained that a universal understanding of the rules of operating in the digital asset space keeps jurisdictions from operating like the Wild West. She explained that while the EU and Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, have not made any specific pronouncement of rules to govern the sector, the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, has published anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism guidelines for the fintech space. Likely to follow private sector proofs of concept in renewable energy projects as the country heads toward its goal of 30% renewable energy by 2030. That's according to CEO of the Simonet Group, Cameron Simonet, speaking to Guardian Business. He says that 2 to 3 renewable energy projects per year on the Family Islands can get the country to the 30% penetration by 2030 that the government's been chasing for years. He explained that the Bahamas is uniquely positioned to benefit from solar energy in the Family Islands. And beginning August 1st, the government will provide free Wi-Fi internet access to at least one park in every constituency throughout the country. That's according to Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Wade Watson. Watson says the Bahamas Parks Connects initiative is a part of the Davis administration's commitment to the country's digital transformation and further development of the information and communications technology sector. BTC is on the hunt for a new general manager after the company announced that Andre Foster will step down August 2nd. Foster was only promoted to the position in early 2021. A BTC statement explained that the CEO of Cable and Wireless Communications announced that Foster's impending departure. BTC is a subsidiary of CWC. The statement saying that Foster has enjoyed a distinguished career with CWC spanning over 17 years and outlining his achievements. You can read more about that in today's Guardian Business section. Overseas, Zimbabwe has launched gold coins to be sold to the public in a bid to tame runaway inflation that has further eroded the country's unstable currency. The unprecedented move announced today by the country's central bank, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, is being done to boost confidence in the local currency. Trust in Zimbabwe's currency is low after people saw their savings wiped out by hyperinflation in 2008, which reached 5 billion%, according to the IMF. With strong memories of that disastrous inflation, many Zimbabweans today prefer to scramble on the illegal market for scarce U.S. dollars to keep at home as savings for daily transactions. Faith in Zimbabwe's currency is already so low that many retailers don't accept it. The central bank disbursed 2,000 coins to commercial banks on Monday. The first batch of the coins minted outside the country, but eventually they'll be produced locally, according to the governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. The coins can be used for purchases in shops, depending on whether the shops have enough change. And from Germany, a German union has called on Lufthansa calling other ground staff to walk out on a one-day strike Wednesday in a dispute over pay. The union saying today that the call applies to all Lufthansa locations in Germany. It comes amid negotiations on pay for about 20,000 employees of logistical, technical, and cargo subsidiaries of the airline. The union aims to raise the pressure on the airline ahead of the next round of negotiations on August 3rd and 4th. Such warning strikes are a common tactic in German labor negotiations and typically last from several hours to a day or two. The walkout comes at a time when airports in Germany and elsewhere already are seeing disruption and long lines for security checks. The union is calling for a 9.5% pay increase this year and says an offer by Lufthansa earlier this month, which would involve a deal for an 18-month period, falls far short of its demands. Closer to home in your Market Watch, recapping trading on the BISX from Friday. Your market movers Consolidated Water unchanged at $2.84. Emir Incorporated down 1 cent, closing at $11.24. The BISX All Share Index closing at 2,614.57, unchanged. Recapping the week, the local market ended the week with 40,124 shares crossing the exchange with 23 trades, accumulating a value of $211,342. The BISX All Share Index gained 14.84 points, or 0.571%. Year to date, the index is up 386.33 points, or 17.338%. The week's volume and value leader, Commonwealth Bank, moving 20,244 shares in 3 trades with a value of $72,880. That's your Market Watch, and that is your morning business report brought to you by CFAL, growing wealth for future generations. And tune in tonight for CFAL Talks, 6:30, 96.9. We are back here with Morning Blend Business on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strachan with you on this Monday morning. We are talking with Romuald Ferreira, the former Environment Minister, and talking about the environmental issues of concern today in our country. It's hot, Romuald Ferreira, and but it's actually cooler in the Bahamas than many places in the world, many places north of us, Europe and the United States, seeing record temperatures and massive heat waves. And, of course, scientists have been saying for years this is what's to come, more of this. And you mentioned it, our Prime Minister is traveling a lot and talking about change. He's been becoming known for it. But there are concerns that we aren't exactly practicing what we preach here. Yes, our carbon footprints are tiny compared to the big players, but we don't practice what we preach in this country. Is that accurate? Is that a fair statement? And what can we do?
Let's phrase it this way. First of all, we have to say that climate change is real, because a few years back we had a president that didn't believe it was real. So I think it's even more real now. And I have to say that to point out that a lot of this, what happens depends on what's happening in the international world and what's happening here in the Bahamas and how the Bahamas responds to it. Carbon credits, we have to look at it in a two-sphere sense. The percentage of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere comes from all the fossil fuel that we burn. And the more of that that's in the atmosphere, the hotter the planet is going to get. And so this is why renewable energies and all of those other forms of energy are much more important, because they don't produce that. So us during the industrial age, we had this increase in carbon dioxide, and here we are now, and it flowed on unabated. The two big forms of carbon credits are going to be for those countries whose economies are based on hydrocarbons, like the United States, like China, like India. They produce large amounts of carbon dioxide. The smaller countries, like us, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, we produce. We're on the front lines of climate change. We're on the front lines because we experience the hurricane ravages that they don't, and it's a direct result of their activities. Well, from that imbalance, each country gets a certain amount of credits, because particularly those countries that don't produce as much carbon because their economies aren't as developed. And so there's a certain amount of credits apportioned that way. And those credits rely on validations from national agencies and national centers. And this is where you start to get the discrepancies and some of the confusion as what they're really worth, how can we trade them, who's going to validate them. This idea of double counting, where you count the carbon credits more than once, and in that way mislead the system. And that's one form of it. Another form is what you see happening with the Bahamas Protected Areas Fund, where you are paid to preserve areas. And that is a slightly different twist, but it's still coming out of the carbon credit systems. And so in a way, the Bahamas is practicing what we preach, because on these front end, these things are happening. And the laws now are in place. Remember that prior to the passage of the environmental legislation in 2019, there were no environmental laws. There was no Ministry of Environment Act. There was no ban on plastics and styrofoam. There was no Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. There was none of that. There was no, as a matter of fact, there were no environmental impact assessment regulations. There was no conservation and protection of the biological resources of the Bahamas and Traditional Knowledge Act. There was none of that. So in terms of taking great leaps forward, that happened in 2019. Make no mistake about that. That's a huge leap forward. And what we see now is continuing to build on that and build on that legacy. Are we where we ought to be? No. But, we will get there, I'm sure. But a big part of how to get there is to enforce the existing regulations. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the crux of what you're trying to say, is that if we don't enforce the regulations, we're expecting all of this from the world, in the sense that they are donating the money, they're the big culprits, and we're the receiving. But we have an ethical issue here that we need to do all that we possibly can to alleviate some of the burden. And you're absolutely right with that.
I mean, do you feel the public's on board? Is the public sufficiently concerned about meeting the 2030 targets we have, and concerned about what we are doing that could be harming the environment? Or are we just like, well, I got to do what I got to do?
I think survival is very important. It's difficult to talk about retrofitting your house and buying solar panels when you don't have anything to eat. That goes without saying. That's very difficult. Is that, which stage of starvation do you pick the panel over a plate of food? So, that's really self-evident. But at the same time, this is where the leadership comes in. And this idea of going to 30%, the environmental impact assessment regulations have been tied in with that development plan. So as a government and successive governments, in other words, this 30%, when new projects come in, those developments have to show a 30% RE footprint. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about major projects. And this was an initiative left in place that is being continued today by this present administration, which shows a kind of unanimity amongst legislators on this issue of environment and on this issue of environment protection. Yeah. Because it hardly ever happens in our bicameral system where there's just that kind of... I would say that there is that, and there is this fact that we live on the Tropic of Cancer. We have the most productive sunlight on the planet in terms of efficiencies. And so therefore, the market penetration is really on cost and cost of labor, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And these are some of the drivers that move these things forward.
Yeah. Let's take this call really quickly, and we got some text messages to get to. Good morning. You are on the air.
Well, good morning, Dwight. Good morning, Dwight.
Hi, good morning.
I've been talking about this from 1994. We've been around the world, Copenhagen, COP21, COP26. And the world must be laughing at us. Because before you go down carbon credits and fines, we haven't even solarized the country. Hawaii started much after us, and the majority of their power during the day comes from solar. And I said on your Guardian show in 2016 that the solar could be free. You know, we could have used the carbon credits to get the people in the north with no sun compared to us to put the solar on every one of our buildings for free. They would receive in real time over the internet from the control box in each home the carbon credits that were being saved. But the biggest atrocity, I'd like to come on with you one morning in a segment and discuss energy security. The biggest atrocity is we go around the world and talk about these things while burning the most deadly fuel in the world, Bunker C, and diesel generators. We had 80 of them on Blue Hill Road, 80 little containers, 20-foot containers, 80 little 20-foot containers with one generator in each pumping out diesel. The filters have to be changed every so often. The fuel filter, Dwight, what do we do with that? Do we just put in the dump? Is that toxic? See, we have to look at the whole scope of energy security. We should have been completely solarized by now. It shouldn't have to be a burden on our people. So I never want to hear anyone talk again about the cost of solar because it could be free.
All right,
and
let's
one
see.
day we'll talk the whole thing on the show, Dwight. You give me a call, eh?
Okay, all right. I don't know if you want to respond to any of that, Romuald Ferreira.
No, I mean, I agree with certain elements of what he's saying, but of course there is a cost involved with installing solar. And that capital development cost is what I'm really talking about.
Yeah. This interesting text here. When you were the minister, were there any companies that were prosecuted for breaking environmental laws?
Yeah, there were many of them. That's a wonderful question, because when I came to office as minister, I'll give you a really good example of it. When I came to office as minister, the environmental court didn't exist. It had stopped operating. It was defunct. And so one of the first things I did was to reinstitute the environmental court to prosecute companies and individuals on environmental offenses. The prosecutors were selected from the Department of Environmental Health, DHS, Department of Environmental Health Services staff. They were trained by the chief magistrate herself. We attended court and they started prosecuting. I attended court on the very first offense. They prosecuted hundreds of people. And so the answer to that is yes. We did get that moving. And once that was moving, this is why I felt it very, very necessary to complete the Environmental Planning and Protection Act, because you had one sphere that was prosecuting in the magistrate court. And what's really missing now is for the big players to be prosecuted in the Supreme Court. And that's why that law was enacted. And this is an incident have to be in the Supreme Court and not the magistrate court.
We're running out of time, but what sorts of things were they prosecuted for? What were the penalties?
You would be talking about infractions on sewage, infractions on sanitation conditions, public health in the sense of unsanitary, everything that comes and falls under the Environmental Health Services Act. Because remember, there was no Environment Act until we passed it in 2019. The existing legislation was the Environmental Health Services Act. And so the prosecutions had to come from under that, because that was the only law you actually had to work with. And so it would be violations under that, derelict vehicles, the whole slew of them that impact people's lives and the value of neighborhoods. And then in addition to that, unsafe premises, et cetera, from that fall under that category, under that act.
And with the Equinor spill, were there penalties there other than the cleanup that they were made to do? But were there penalties, fines for what happened?
With the Equinor spill, there was no prosecution in the magistrate court for that offense, and there have been no prosecutions that I've heard of stemming from it under this particular regime, but it happened at an interface. So the answer to that would be no.
Well, as we're out of time, I want to ask you if you think that was right, but should there not have been?
No, I mean, it's an interesting discussion, and it's a discussion that ought to be had. You had a situation where you had a hurricane. So you had an act of nature. You didn't have an accidental release where somebody bunkering diesel to a shoreline. You're talking about two completely different situations. You had a hurricane, and then you had the failure of certified equipment during a hurricane where tanks, the roofs of tanks had been blown off. And then as a result of the wind driving the bunker sea over and out of the tanks, it overspilled the wall and into the surrounding forest. So that was a hurricane was the cause of that. This particular incident, right? This particular incident has more to do with human error. That's a completely different situation. The law speaks very clearly to force majeure and acts of God. It's very clear and distinct on that. And regardless of the sentiment of the public, I mean, the law is very clear. And the law is also very clear on accidental releases, on negligence, on whether or not ships had the due diligence and training and inspection. The law is very clear on that as well. And so that's the actual legal framework upon which these two situations are predicated. And in the former case, with Equinor and acts of God, the law takes a very, very different term in terms of culpability. And so then you become responsible for the cleanup and the removal as what you saw happen. But in accidental releases, culpability, whose fault is it? Who's to blame? That becomes very, very, very front and center because you can't blame the hurricane. You can't sue the hurricane. You can't take action against Hurricane Dorian. It doesn't exist as a person. But you can take action against the vessel, against the owners, against the board of directors, against the people who would have hired them. And no doubt they ought to have insurance and they ought to be insurance claimed. I mean, this doesn't have to be so adversarial where people go to jail, but at the same sense, imagine this was a situation where Carnival released toxins into the harbor there and they were assessed millions. It doesn't have to be a confrontational situation, but certainly fines need to flow from this.
Absolutely.
Action needs to be taken.
Well, Romualdo, it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Hopefully we'll talk again soon. And next time I'll ask you about your political future. We'll say that for the next discussion. But thank you again for being with us this morning.
All right, thank you.
All right. And that's it for Morning Blend Business and Morning Blend. I want to thank Laverne Gardner for being with us today. I'll be back tomorrow morning with more right here on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strachan, have a great day. Stay tuned for On the Clock with Aaron Green next.